Chapter 2047. Where are the people? Chapter 2047. Where are the people? Ning Siyu's particulars were placed in front of the group of Empyreans very soon. Everyone was rendered speechless. A female 5-star alchemy G.O.D. could actually fight on par with initial stage Dao realm powerhouses. This kind of strength was simply outrageous to hear. Wasn't this Ning Siyu a junior version of Yi Yuan? With this, the group of 7-star alchemy G.O.D.s finally understood why these geniuses all wanted to choose Yi Yuan. How could a barren place like Heavenly Eagle have some unparalleled genius? This Ning Siyu was definitely groomed by Yi Yuan. At the very most, Ning Siyu merely followed Yi Yuan for 1,000 years' time, but had such strength. It was truly dreadful to hear. Everyone looked toward Yi Yuan like seeing a ghost. This guy was truly a freak. Empyrean Pill Jade somewhat understood Yun Yi now. This great-grandson of his had an obsession with alchemy Dao that normal people found hard to understand. Witnessing Yi Yuan, this major power, how could Yun Yi not be moved? If Yun Yi could really acknowledge Yi Yuan as master, it would also be a good thing to Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital. Although he did not want to admit it, Empyrean Flutterfeather's talent was indeed greater than his, now that he already lost to Flutterfeather. Along with the Pa-S, Sage of Time, the likelihood of winning would be lower and lower. But Yun Yi's potential was far from exhausted. Once developed by Yi Yuan, Serpa-S, Sing Empyrean Flutterfeather in the future was also not something impossible. Except, could Yun Yi really Pa-S? Yi Yuan's test? This season's Cloud Pill Summit's disciple recruitment ended in such a theatrical style. Apart from Ning Siyu, the other 39 people directly left Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital afterward and sprinted for Heavenly Eagle Imperial City. Following that, the curtains were drawn for the Grandmaster's preaching on the Tao that had a duration of half a month. A total of 14 locations was set up in the city, provided for 14 Grandmasters to preach on the Tao. Grandmasters preaching on the Tao could be said to be a welfare benefit. All of the alchemists in the city could choose the Grandmaster that they admired in their hearts and listen to the sermon without any restrictions. Lin Tong was a 5-star alchemy G.O.D. from a remote imperial city. He hurried over to Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital from a great distance just to listen attentively to Grandmasters preaching on the Tao. He did not have the qualifications to enter the inner city to watch the Cloud Pill Summit. The reason why he came to Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital was for the sake of this final Grandmaster sermon in the outer city. He also became acquainted with some people of the same profession and agreed to go and listen to Grandmasters preach on the Tao. Lin Tong, which Grandmaster's sermon do you plan on listening to? The one talking was called Song Zichuan, a good friend that Lin Tong made in this period of time. Lin Tong said without the slightest hesitation, "Is there still a need to ask? Of course it's Empyrean Pill Jade. He's an Ancestor Realm powerhouse, the Southern Border's #1 person." Song Zichuan chuckled and said, "Southern Border's #1 person? Your intel is really out of touch. Empyrean Pill Jade lost to Empyrean Flutterfeather this time. The Tlee of Southern Border's #1 person already changed owners." Lin Tong's eyes opened wide, and he said in disbelief, "Empyrean Pill Jade is an Ancestor Realm powerhouse. How can he possibly lose?" Song Zichuan had the intention of showing off, as he said with a smile, "You don't know it yet, right? Empyrean Flutterfeather came, prepared this time. He already broke through to Ancestor Realm. Furthermore, he defeated Empyrean Pill Jade under the watchful gazes of everyone. The next Cloud Pill Summit will be changing its name to be called LUS, True's Gold Summit. There's actually such a thing?" Lin Tong said in surprise. It was very hard for them all, these bottom-level martial artists, to get the inner city's information. It tended to be inquired from SCR, ping together what everyone had. Song Zichuan had some connections in the inner city, so the intel that he obtained was still considered more accurate. Song Zichuan said smugly. Ha! Although Empyrean Flutterfeather defeated Empyrean Pilljade, their light during this Cloud Pill Summit was overshadowed by another person. Lin Tong was shocked by this series of information until he stared dumbfoundedly with his mouth gaping. He said blankly, "Could it be that there's still an existence even stronger than these two mighty ancestor realms?" Hoo-hoo, not to the extent of being stronger, but him Serpa sing these two mighty ancestor realms in the future wouldn't be something hard. Song Zichuan said with a laugh. Lin Tong let out a sigh in relief and said with a smile, "Looks like a remarkable genius emerged in this Cloud Pill Summit." Many geniuses would appear in each Cloud Pill Summit. This was not at all surprising. Lin Tong, naturally, would not take it to heart. But Song Zichuan smiled disdainfully and said, "Cloud Pill Summit? Hoo-hoo, among all the juniors partic. 1p, aiding this lord that I'm talking about is just a third firmament true G. Oh, D also a 6-star alchemy G. Oh, D. He's an existence who already surmounted above all of the 7-star alchemy G. Oh, DS, and became a grandmaster. Not just that, all top 40 geniuses in this Cloud Pill Summit wanted to acknowledge him as their master." Lin Tong's expression became more exciting towards the back. After Song Zichuan finished saying, he chuckled and said, "Brother Song, you're also exaggerating too much. A 6-star alchemy G. Oh, D surmounted above all of the 7-star alchemy G. Oh, DS, how is this possible?" When Song Zichuan saw that Lin Tong did not believe, he just smiled coldly and said, "Whether believe it or not, that is up to you. Either way, I'm planning on going to listen to Grandmaster Ye's sermon. Farewell." Seeing Song Zichuan leave, Lin Tong laughed in spite of himself and shook his head. Song Zichuan blew his trumpet a little too hard. It was totally impossible for people to believe. Actually, it was not just Lin Tong. The alchemists in the city presently were no fewer than several hundreds of thousands. They completely did not believe that a third firmament true G, D, could make two great ancestor realms be cast into the shade. When the Grandmaster's sermon started, Yi Yuan's sermon site had the lowest count. There were only a scanty few several thousand people. Most of these several thousand people were very young. They were all alchemists that partic. 1p, aided in the Cloud Pill Summit. Preaching on Tao was different from alchemy battles in the end. No matter how strong Yi Yuan's strength was, his ACCU mulations were also not as long as other grandmasters. Furthermore, Yi Yuan was just a 6-star alchemy G. D after all. Hence, everyone did not have much faith in his preaching on the Tao. To many alchemists, this was an opportunity that only came by once every several thousand years. They were naturally not willing to waste it on a grandmaster who was young until it made people doubt. When Lin Tong saw the ocean-like alchemists around him, he was immediately greatly assured in his heart. Song Zichuan, that fellow was definitely bragging. Maybe he's also here, listening to Empyrean Pilljade preach on the Tao himself. If that young grandmaster is really so formidable, everyone also wouldn't come and listen to Empyrean Pilljade preaching on the Tao. Lin Tong thought in his heart. On the first day of the sermon, Lin Tong was wholly enraptured listening to it. Ancestor Realm powerhouses were Ancestor Realm powerhouses, the experience and knowledge, the preaching on the Tao, absolutely surmounted all life. Lin Tong's alchemy strength was already considered very strong in the surrounding imperial cities, but his strength had already come to an end. A measly little imperial city was already unable to let him improve further. By chance, he heard the news of the Cloudpill summit and rushed over to Cloudpill Great Imperial Capital without the slightest hesitation. Now, hearing Empyrean Pilljade's sermon, it made him have a feeling of being amidst cloud and mist. That sort of feeling made him feel like he might break through at any time. This is the strength of an ancestor realm powerhouse. This sermon might be my opportunity to break through, Lin Tong thought, being incomparably certainly in his heart. But right at this time, very soft discussions suddenly came from around him. Lin Tong's brows furrowed, and he turned his head, wanting to express his displeasure. When an ancestor realm powerhouse was preaching on Tao, they actually did not pay attention and were whispering to one another below. But upon turning his head, he was immediately stunned. Where were the people? Chapter 2048. Empty Alleys. Chapter 2048. Empty Alleys. Lin Tong listened very attentively and did not notice the situation behind him. But upon turning his head, he could not help but be filled with surprise. Behind him, the crowd that was originally in great numbers actually disappeared without a trace. That Grandmaster Yi is incredible. I heard that during his sermon, many people broke through on the spot. Yeah, I heard that Grandmaster Ye's sermon explained profound theories in simple terms. He made it very easy to understand. Sigh. I really had my eyes blinded by pig oil to actually not go and listen to Grandmaster Ye's preaching on the Tao. Many people have already gone over. Let's hurry and go over. Then what are we still waiting for? Hurry up and go over. Those few people discussed and got up and were about to leave. When Lin Tong heard the few people discussing, he was incredibly shocked in his heart and secretly wondered if the Grandmaster Yi from these few people's mouths was the Grandmaster Yi that Song Zichuan spoke of. Seeing the few people leave, Lin Tong hurriedly stopped them and whispered, "Fellow Taoists, who is the Grandmaster Yi that you guys were talking about just now?" The few people looked at Lin Tong with eyes like looking at a freak, as one of them said, "You don't even know about Grandmaster Yi?" Lin Tong smiled bitterly and said, "Fellow Taoist, please tell me." The other person said, "Grandmaster Yi is the youngest Grandmaster in the Southern Border's history, the youngest half-step ancestor realm. In this alchemy summit, he suppressed 99% of the 7-star alchemy G. DS with his power alone until they submitted. You've actually never heard of his great name before. Not talking to you anymore. I've already been stuck at the initial stage, initial realm, for many years. Perhaps after listening to Grandmaster Yi preach on Tao, it will suddenly dawn upon me." Done talking, that person left without even turning his head back, leaving behind the Lin Tong with a stunned face. Song Zichuan was actually not bragging, but how was this possible? Song Zichuan said that this Grandmaster Yi was only less than 1,500 years old. He actually stepped into becoming a half-step alchemy G. And overpowered 99% of the 7-star alchemy G. DS? This was simply a figure in mythological stories. If it was merely like this, then forget it. It had nothing to do with him, no matter how strong Yi Yuan was either. But now, Yi Yuan's preaching on the Tao actually let many people break through on the spot. This was too incredible. Lin Tong harbored complicated feelings and slowly got up and walked over in the direction where Yi Yuan was preaching on the Tao along with the crowd. Along the way, Lin Tong discovered that more and more people were currently gathering in the same direction. This is too inconceivable. Can a 1,000-over-years-old young man really have such great rallying power? Lin Tong was still somewhat doubting. The Tianhua Plaza at the southwest was a very remote plaza of Cloudpill Great Imperial Capital. The plaza was very small and could only accommodate several tens of thousands of people. Lin Tong could not move anymore after he walked halfway, because in front of him was packed full of people. On the roofs, on the pavilions, there were figures everywhere. Although the numbers were many, the entire plaza appeared extremely quiet. A pin drop could be heard. There was only a voice that seemed slightly immature in the plaza, transmitting over slowly. Just hearing a few sentences, Lin Tong's figure suddenly trembled, akin to being enlightened, all the pores in the body opening up. This, no way. I have to hurry up and find a place. Lin Tong's eyes swept all around hastily and discovered that it was already overcrowded. Helpless, he came to a slightly far-off rooftop with a few leaps. Lin Tong! Suddenly, a mosquito-like voice came over. Lin Tong had a look of surprise as he said, Song Zichuan? Why are you here? Who could this person be if not Song Zichuan? It was just that. Didn't Song Zichuan come long ago? Why would he be in such a remote place? Song Zichuan had a bitter smile on his face as he said, the places in front are all occupied by major families' disciples. I was originally at a place very close to Grandmaster Yi. Now, I was forcefully squeezed out. Finished talking, Song Zichuan switched to an amused smile and said, Didn't you not believe my words, saying that I was bragging? Since you turned your nose up at Grandmaster Yi, what did you come here now for? Lin Tong's expression was very awkward, but he recollected his thoughts very quickly and could not be bothered to argue with Song Zichuan. He wanted to listen to Yi Yuan's preaching on the Tao. Although he had only heard a few sentences, Lin Tong discovered that Grandmaster Ye's sermon was totally different from Empyrean Piljade's. Empyrean Piljade's sermon was akin to clouds, seeming near but in reality far away. But Grandmaster Ye's sermon was akin to revolving around him. It was within reach. This kind of feeling was like there was a pair of invisible big hands hastening the influence, letting them understand alchemy Tao. Looking at your appearance, you should have discovered the difference of Grandmaster Ye's sermon, right? I only listened for a day, and already broke through, Song Zichuan said with a smug look. When he saw the expression on Lin Tong's face, how could he not understand what the other party was thinking? When he first started listening, his expression was exactly the same as Lin Tong's. With this, Lin Tong could not resist visibly changing his countenance anymore. What? You already broke through? Lin Tong said in shock. Song Zichuan's strength was similar to his. He was also at the peak initial realm, just a step away from reaching the middle stage initial realm. It was just that this step was far too difficult for them. But Song Zichuan only listened for a day and already broke through the shackles. How could this not surprise Lin Tong? Song Zichuan chuckled and said, That's right. Among those 5,000 people that came first, there were at least 300 people that broke through on the spot. Lin Tong was already unable to use words to describe the shock in his heart. This Grandmaster Yi was too amazing. He sucked in a deep breath, forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart, and started listening to Yi Yuan's preaching on the Tao, and he entered a profound and mysterious state very soon. Empyrean Piljade looked at the sharply declining numbers, his brows furrowing. This kind of sermon did not restrict the venue. People that were willing could go to several venues within half a month. But in the past, his audience normally had more than 100,000 people. But now, there were less than 30,000 people, and the numbers were still declining. How keen was the divine sense of Empyrean powerhouses? He could feel that the people who left were all heading in the southwest directly. That place was precisely the place where Yi Yuan was preaching. Furthermore, Empyrean Piljade even discovered that it was not just him, but the numbers of people at other Grandmaster sermons were also reducing sharply. The alchemists in the city were practically all gathered towards the southwest corner. Just how terrifying is this kid? Toward Yi Yuan, Empyrean Pilljade, presently only had a word to describe his sentiment: convinced. Ever since the Cloud Pills Summit started, Yi Yuan suppressed Empyreans, seized territories, and took in geniuses. Now, he also drew all of the alchemists in the city into his preaching field. He felt that the Cloud Pills Summit this time was simply held for Yi Yuan. Although Empyrean Pilljade looked down on these ordinary alchemists, he also understood that these people were not fools. It was impossible to all go to Yi Yuan there without any rhyme or reason. Yi Yuan's sermon definitely had areas different from others. No, it was not just different from the rest, but it had magical power. The other 12 grandmasters, inclusive of Empyrean Flutterfeather, had the same thoughts as Empyrean Pilljade without prior conversation. Empyrean Flutterfeather looked in the southwest direction and smiled bitterly in his heart as he said, "I thought that I already overestimated this kid. I didn't expect that. I still underestimated him." On the third day of the sermon, Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital had empty alleys. All of the alchemists listening attentively to the sermons all gathered at the southwest corner. It was densely packed with crowds around Tianhua Plaza. Chapter 2049, Sea of Law. Chapter 2049, Sea of Law. Turns out it's like this. Turns out that it's like this. In the crowd, Lin Tong's eyes became brighter and brighter. It was as if clouds and mist were scattering away in the dark night, with stars lighting up. Listening attentively for a day and night, he suddenly saw the light like pus. Plussing away the clouds to see the moon. The confusion in the past was cleared away by Yi Yuan little by little. Lin Tong gradually discovered that Grandmaster Ye's sermon was totally different from Empyrean Pilljade's. The things that Empyrean Pilljade talked about were vague and insubstantial. After listening, one would feel that it was very impressive, but after carefully experiencing it, they would discover that it could not be understood at all. But the things that Grandmaster Yi talked about seemed to be tailor-made for him. Where the Tao was, the meaning could be understood, but it could not be expressed with words. No matter how high the realm, how powerful the strength was, if the things expressed were not correct, others could not understand at all either. And Yi Yuan was just like a teacher who was well-versed in teaching methods, analyzing alchemy Tao with penetrating criticism, especially to these bottom-level alchemists. It was even more beneficial regarding preaching on the Tao. Yi Yuan did not do anything if he was not preaching, but as long as he began lecturing, he would prepare seriously. Since those that came to listen to the lecture were mostly initial stage and middle stage initial realm alchemists, the content that he talked about was targeted at this demographic. To the current Yi Yuan, this kind of content was very simple and easy to understand. Expressing it was naturally very smooth too. But when others listened, it was like great Tao heavenly melody being filled with wisdom. The aura on Lin Tong's body got stronger and stronger. A mysterious aura of Tao gradually descended upon his body. Amen? Hang on, what a mysterious aura. What's going on here? Lin Tong was greatly alarmed in his heart because he felt that the surrounding law undulations were too powerful. He currently felt like the sky had fallen. Boundless power of law surrounded him. It was like he fell into the ocean of alchemy Tao. Beyond the surprise, Lin Tong was more wildly elated. Seeing such vast alchemy Tao law was like entering a treasure mountain to him. So how could he return empty-handed? Hence, he frenziedly wanted to collect these alchemy Tao laws. Lin Tong listened very attentively. He did not discover at all that the current Tianhua Plaza scattered out, with Yi Yuan as the center, and was already densely packed full of figures. This was an ocean of several hundreds of thousands of people, and among these people there were many people who were the same as Lin Tong, all stuck at one point for many years, being unable to advance an inch. During this period of several days' time, many people's realms that did not move for many years finally broke through the shackles after listening to Yi Yuan's sermon. The plaza where Empyrean Pilljade was at did not have a single figure anymore. He also stopped preaching and entered meditation. But at this time, his two eyes suddenly snapped out, shooting out rays of brilliant light, gaze staring fixedly at the southwest corner. A boundless and vast power of law descended from the sky, enveloping the entire cloud-pill, great imperial capital. Even separated so far away, Empyrean Pilljade also vividly felt that boundlessness. This vast power of law was extremely horrifying. Even when he broke through to the ancestor realm back then, it was also just a drop in the ocean compared to this. This is the sea of law descending? Empyrean Pilljade said in astonishment. Suddenly, his figure moved, vanished, plussing from where he was. At the east side of the great imperial capital, the plaza in front of Empyrean Flutterfeather was similarly stark empty. Suddenly, his eyes went wide, looking in the southwest direction with an astonished face. "This is..." Empyrean Flutterfeather muttered a sentence under his breath, his figure moving, immediately disappearing from where he was. Swuz. H. Plus swuz. H. Plus swuz. H. Plus the Grandmaster's figure virtually all disappeared at the same time. It was not just them. How could the 7-star alchemy DS in the city not sense this vast power of law? All of them hurried over toward Tianhua Plaza. "Flutterfeather, I'm afraid that this child isn't what your myriad treasure tower can contain," Empyrean Pilljade said calmly, without even turning his head. Although his words were calm, the shock in his eyes could not be concealed no matter what. Empyrean Flutterfeather smiled bitterly in his heart, but his face was calm as he said, "That doesn't need Brother Pilljade to worry about." Empyrean Pilljade gave a cold snort and stopped speaking. This is Sea of Law. Alchemy Dao's Sea of Law. I didn't expect that this Empyrean can actually see this extraordinary view in my remaining years. The realms of hundreds of thousands of people more or less had advancements and triggered Heavenly Dao, bringing down the Sea of Law. This kind of grand occasion is likely hard to come across once in 10 million years too, right? Empyrean Windrider said, with vicissitudes of emotion. Grandmaster Yi is well deserving of the Tlea of Grandmaster. Previously, we actually even doubted his strength. Looking at it now, our Tlea of Grandmaster fails to live up to the Tlea in front of him. Empyrean Lumen shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "No wonder Grandmaster Yi can attract a full turnout of the city. His understanding of alchemy Dao is much deeper than us." The moment these words came out, the group of Empyreans secretly nodded. They only came here a short while. But just this short while, the things that Yi Yuan talked about, even they also felt endlessly beneficial. The content was superficial content, but the depth of Yi Yuan's understanding was completely not what they could compare to. In comparison, their understanding of initial realms somewhat had the meaning of lapping up information without digesting it. An Empyrean shook his head and said, "This kind of grand occasion, probably only the medicine ancestor and that demon race's sacred ancestor can trigger it. It's just that with their ident. One, ties, why would they preach on the Tao to these ordinary alchemists? Stop talking nonsense. The Sea of Law descending is a civ lucky chance for us as well. Comprehend it well." Empyrean Pilljade said in a solemn voice. Sea of Law, as the name suggested, was an ocean of law. How vast was alchemy Dao? It was hard to understand 1/10,000th of it in a lifetime too. But this Sea of Law was Heavenly Dao's blessing. It was a Civ lucky chance that was hard to come by once every 10 million years. Even if Yi Yuan preached on the Tao one more time, it would also be very difficult to trigger anymore. This kind of sea of law, even to ancestor realms, it was also a Ma's Civ lucky chance. Reaching Piljade's level of boundary, even wanting to improve a trace was harder than ascending to heaven. But with the sea of law, they could feel heavenly Tao in close range. Breaking through would clearly be much easier than cultivating themselves. The group of Empyreans turned solemn in their hearts, hurriedly recollecting their thoughts and stepping into the sea of law, and started comprehending alchemy Tao. This sea of law descending, Yi Yuan naturally detected it long ago. This kind of major lucky chance that only came by once in 1,000 years, logically speaking, he should immediately stop and comprehend laws. No one knew how long this sea of law would last, but he did not. He kept on preaching on Tao, and did not stop. 1 day, 2 days. In a blink, half a month was already up. Yi Yuan's sermon finally ended. Only then did he shut his eyes and meditate, starting to feel the sea of law. Grandmaster Yi is truly trustworthy. Grandmaster, Yi actually didn't stop preaching on the Tao for our sakes. No can do. After this Cloud Pill summit ends, I'm going to Heavenly Eagle Imperial City immediately to repay his grace of preaching. In the crowd, those alchemists were shedding tears of grat. 1, 2 toward Yi Yuan. How much comprehension time that Yi Yuan had forsaken. They had a score in their hearts. Winning sincerity with sincerity. How could others not feel moved? But Yi Yuan did not pay attention to this. His mind and body already sunk into the sea of law, entering a state like an old well without ripples. A profound power of law revolved around him. Chapter 2050, Brink of Death. Chapter 2050. Brink of death, Yi Yuan felt like his divine soul became a droplet of water merging into a sea of law. Inside the vast ocean, Yi Yuan felt that he was extremely tiny, but merging inside, he also felt that he looked down upon the world. The sight around the plaza, he felt like he could actually have a commanding view of it, like a sovereign that controlled this world. Even if it was ants crawling on the ground, insects swimming in the water, Yi Yuan could also see their every move and action distinctly. This kind of feeling was incomparably magical. Could this be Ancestor Realm? No, wait. Although Ancestor Realm is miraculous, it's absolutely impossible to reach this kind of extent. Yi Yuan liked this current state a lot. Inside the sea of law, Empyrean Pilljade, Empyrean Flutterfeather, Empyrean Blazing Sun, and the rest were all comprehending laws. Yi Yuan could even see the current situation of the laws around him. Among these people, the laws flowed the fastest around Empyrean Flutterfeather. Clearly, his comprehension ability was the highest among these people. The next was Empyrean Pilljade. What Yi Yuan did not expect was that the one who was second only to these two people was actually Empyrean Lumen. Looks like Empyrean Lumen's age isn't that old among these grandmasters, and still has potential. With his talent, with this experience of the Sea of Law, he'll probably be able to break through to the Ancestor Realm in the future. It's just a shame about Empyrean Chanyuan. If he were still here, he'd probably be able to break through on the spot. But Yi Yuan discovered that no matter how he spied on them, they were unable to detect it. This kind of state was absolutely not what Ancestor Realm could reach. One had to know these were all late-stage Empyrean Realm mighty experts. Furthermore, their divine souls were incomparably powerful. Even a trace of the rustling of leaves in the wind could not hide from their eyes and ears. Could it be that I'm currently spying on them through this sea of law, which is also to say that I'm this area's heavenly Tao? The chance is hard to come by. I have to experience it carefully. Yi Yuan was amazed in his heart. It was as if he had fused into one body with heavenly Tao laws. He was heavenly Tao, and heavenly Tao was him. Yi Yuan recollected his thoughts and started comprehending heavenly Tao. Time flew by quickly. In a twinkle, a month went by. The group of Empyreans opened both eyes in succession, withdrawing from a meditative state, regretful looks on their faces. With this comprehension, they each gleaned considerable benefits. But this kind of comprehension was limited in the end. Their realm was not there yet. Indulging in the sea of law for a long time would make them blow up and die. No matter how strong Empyreans were, they were also not stronger than heavenly Tao. This level of sea of law was like an inexhaustible noise. Plussing liquid. Drinking a bit could make people full. But drinking too much, one would probably be excessively nourished by it and even potentially stuff themselves to death. But these powers of laws were already sufficient for them to digest for a very long time. As for those alchemists that listened attentively to the sermon, they had long already withdrawn respectively. Their strength was not able to withstand such a vast sea of law at all. I didn't expect that this sea of law actually lasted for more than a month, truly seldom seen. Yi Yuan is still comprehending? Empyrean Pilljade said with a frown. Logically speaking, Yi Yuan's realm was inferior to his, and should have long withdrawn. Flutterfeather also had a look of surprise and said in a solemn voice, "This guy, doesn't he understand the logic of biting off more than one can chew?" The group of Empyrean was also greatly surprised. These Empyreans had already withdrawn, and Yi Yuan was actually still indulging inside. "Brother Flutterfeather, Yi Yuan's state seems to be somewhat amiss." Empyrean Papluing warned. Empyrean Flutterfeather's face changed. Looking over carefully, he discovered that Yi Yuan's condition indeed seemed to be not quite right. The current Yi Yuan was seemingly like an empty husk, his body without any lease of life. "No way. I can't let him continue like this. I have to wake him up." Finished talking, Empyrean Flutterfeather's figure moved and entered the sea of law once more, attempting to wake Yi Yuan up. But right at this time, a bolt of lightning the size of a bowl suddenly fell from above the 9 heavens without the slightest signs. Crack, crack, boom. Empyrean Flutterfeather's face changed drastically, a feeling of danger immediately welling up in his heart. How could he dare to hesitate at all? His figure retreated explosively at once. Right at that instant, his figure withdrew from the sea of law, and the lightning suddenly dissipated. It was as if it had never appeared before. Came swiftly, departure was quick too, but Empyrean Flutterfeather's back was already drenched in sweat. Just what's going on here? Empyrean Papluing said with surprise. "Looks like the sea of law can't be entered. We can only pray that Yi Yuan will be safe." Empyrean Flutterfeather shook his head and said with a sigh, "That lightning earlier was too terrifying. It was as if it was the might of heaven and earth. If he was any slower, he would likely have already turned to ashes." But some Empyreans that found Yi Yuan displeasing to the eyes were secretly rejoicing in their hearts currently, especially Empyrean Proud Cloud. The joy on his face practically could not be concealed. The evil that people bring on themselves is the hardest to bear. This punk was sure that his talent is exceedingly high and really thought that this sea of law is his home's backyard, staying as long as he wanted to. Empyrean Proud Cloud said with a cold smile. Empyrean Pilljade was also secretly delighted in his heart, but he did not show it and just said coolly, "All disperse." Time slowly trickled by. The group of Empyreans naturally would not idle away here too, each seeking place and going into closed seclusion. At this time, the Cloud Pill summit already completely ended. But there were still many people gathered around Tianjue Plaza, looking at that figure on the high platform with concerned looks. Yi Yuan's sermon benefited everyone. There were always some people who felt grateful. Although they could not do anything, they could still be concerned about Yi Yuan at one side. 1 day, 2 days. 1 month, 2 months. 1 year, 2 years. In a blink, more than 2 years already, Pa S said. Yi Yuan sat withered on the platform just like that, with no signs of life on his body at all. Many people all let out deep sighs, turned around, and left. There were already not many people in Tianjue Plaza. Sai, how can this be? Grandmaster Yi is so remarkably talented. Why would he die here? We received Grandmaster Yi's kindness, but I didn't expect that he died here. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. Suddenly, a voice said with a cold snort, "Shut up! Grandmaster Yi won't die. He must be comprehending the heavenly Tao. There will come one day where he'll wake up." By the side, Song Zichuan shook his head and said with a sigh, "Forget it, Lin Tong. Come on, it's already been 2 years. Didn't you see that those 7-star alchemy G? Oh, DS could only stay for more than a month in the Sea of Law too?" Lin Tong smiled coldly and said, "Ha, so what? Grandmaster Yi was able to trigger the Sea of Law to descend. So how can he possibly die here? Didn't you see that the Sea of Law is still there and didn't dissipate? Song Zichuan, if you want to go, leave. I must wait for Grandmaster Yi to wake up. Grandmaster Yi gave me a new life. Not seeing him wake up, I'll find it hard to set my mind at ease." Originally, Song Zichuan was Yi Yuan's most staunch supporter. But along with the time getting longer and longer, Yi Yuan's aura got weaker and weaker. Even he had no confidence anymore as well. Rather, it was Lin Tong who was extremely stubborn, insisting firmly that Yi Yuan did not die and must wait for him to wake up. Song Zichuan let out a sigh, turned around, and left. However, things did not develop according to Lin Tong's idea. This wait of his was 10 years, but Yi Yuan did not show any signs of waking up. Chapter 2051. The Superficiality of Human Relations. H.I. plus P.S. Chapter 2051. The Superficiality of Human Relations. H.I. plus P.S. Duan Yunfei, have you trained Serene Cloud 300 hands 1,000 times? You dare to slack off here? Yun Yi looked at the Duan Yunfei currently basking in the sun, reproaching angrily. Duan Yunfei was the youth surnamed Duan, who ridiculed Yi Yuan back then. When choosing a master, Duan Yunfei similarly joined in choosing Yi Yuan without the slightest hesitation. After their group of people came to Heavenly Eagle Imperial City, they joined the Pill Tower. It was just that according to Yi Yuan's instructions, they could only become medicine boys. Disregarding these miscellaneous CHORES, what they cultivated were also the most basic alchemy techniques. To these alchemy geniuses who were arrogant at heart and haughty in manner, this was simply something that could not be tolerated. They had to repeatedly do some dreary things every day. There was no time to cultivate at all. In their view, it was completely wasting time. This was not tempering them at all, but making fun of them. In less than half a year, more than 10 people left Heavenly Eagle Imperial City. After a year, another 7 to 8 people could not endure it and left. These genius disciples more or less had some background. Later, after they heard the news of Yi Yuan's demise, one after another left in swarms. Now that 10 years had passed, said the original 40 people only had 3 scanny people left. Apart from Yun Yi and Duan Yunfei, there was also a young man called Yang Xian. Yang Xian was the 5-star group's 20th place, which was also the last place. But only he persisted until now. Even Luo Tianqi, also immediately chose to leave after hearing that Yi Yuan fell. Brother Yun, if you didn't make me stay behind, Duan Yunfei would have long left. A lousy serene cloud, 300 hands. I've already trained no less than several tens of thousands of times. What use is there? Moreover, Yi Yuan is already dead. Is there still meaning in continuing to persist? Duan Yunfei said with a disdainful face. Yun Yi's brows furrowed, and he said with a cold snort, Duan Yunfei, I kept on making you cultivate diligently, but you wouldn't listen. Reading a book 100 times, the meaning can naturally be seen. Refining pills is also the same logic. If you trained in the serene hand 300 hands diligently, there will absolutely be a different feeling. Duan Yunfei chuckled and said, Enough of that. Merely a rank 1 or 2 alchemy technique. What kind of different feeling can there be? You already trained diligently for 10 years, but I didn't see that your realm had any breakthrough either. Forget it. Forget it. I don't have the time to waste time here. Brother Yun, you're really not leaving together with me? By the side, Yang Xian said, Brother Duan, what Brother Yun said is correct. I also didn't expect that these foundational alchemy techniques still had such miraculous comprehensions in the past. If you cultivate diligently, it will really be different. Duan Yunfei gave a cold snort and said, What has it got to do with you? Do you think you can call me Brother Duan? Get lost. Yun Yi's brows knitted tightly, and he said in a solemn voice, You really want to go? Duan Yunfei said coolly, Brother Yun, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but no matter how great Yi Yuan's talent was, he also played himself to death. Your talent is currently the southern border's #1, but you want to waste your time here? Yun Yi heaved a sigh and said, Forget it. There is little common ground for understanding between persons of differing principles. Leave. It's just that. Hope you don't regret it in the future. Duan Yunfei smiled and said, Regret? How is that possible? Brother Yun, the one regretting will be you. It's already been 10 years, yet Yi Yuan didn't even wake up. Do you feel that he can still wake up? Finished talking, Duan Yunfei left with a loud laugh. Yang Xian let out a sigh and said, Brother Yun, I really didn't expect that you could actually persist until this step. Yun Yi was somewhat lost in deep reverie. Hearing Yang Xian said this, he smiled slightly and said, Is it that in your eyes I'm just a silpants and that I can't endure hards? I plus PS and suffering? Yang Xian blushed. Clearly he thought so, but in these 10 years, Yun Yi's actions and conduct indeed made him view him in a different light. He was the one among everyone who could bear the most hards. I plus PS, and also cultivated the most diligently. Even these rank 1 and 2 alchemy techniques. He had long already memorized them thoroughly, but he still practiced them again and again fastidiously. When everyone was about to leave, it was also Yun Yi who spoke up and urged earnestly. It was just that no one listened to him at all. Musing for a moment, Yang Xian suddenly said, Brother Yun, then do you feel that Grandmaster Yi can really come back? Yun Yi's gaze turned intent. Heaving a sigh, he shook his head and said, Honestly telling you, I also don't know. Yang Xian said in surprise, Then you're still staying here? Yun Yi smiled bitterly and said, If it were 5 years ago, I still had some confidence that Grandmaster Yi can return. But it's already 10 years now. That side has already sent news that Grandmaster Ye's body is already totally without any breathing. It's completely the manifestation of not having any life force. The reason why I stayed here is that I felt that Grandmaster Yi wasn't just testing us. He was really teaching us things. Ever since arriving at the Pill Tower, I discovered that turns out one can cultivate like this. The things that we originally overlooked are too many. Yang Xian, I think that you also have the same feeling, right? Yang Xian nodded his head seriously and said, "It's indeed like so. A towering SKSC. R. A per is constructed from its very base. We think that our alchemy talent is outstanding, but we neglected the importance of foundation. I think that for Grandmaster Yi to be able to have such terrifying strength at a young age, a very large part of the reason comes from this. Right?" Yun Yi nodded his head, deeply feeling that way too. In these 10 years, Empyrean Pilljade called him back many times, but he refused to go back no matter what. He was waiting for a miracle to appear. Empyrean Flutterfeather looked at the Yi Yuan inside the Sea of Law. His gaze was extremely complicated. "Yi Yuan, are you really dead? This Empyrean doesn't believe that you'll die in this matter. But it's been 10 years. Why haven't you woken up yet?" Empyrean Flutterfeather said with a sigh. "Ha ha!" Brother Flutterfeather came again. "It's already been more than 10 years. You still haven't given up." This kid pried into heavenly Tao. His divine soul has long been wiped out already. You're actually still thinking that he can come back to life? Empyrean Proud Cloud said with a snicker. Empyrean Flutterfeather's brows furrowed slightly and said with a cold snort, "Proud Cloud, these few years, the few of you went against the Peak Alchemy Meets Agreement and secretly ate Heavenly Eagle's territory. Do you really think that my myriad treasure tower is to be trifled with?" Empyrean Proud Cloud laughed loudly and said, "Brother Flutterfeather's words are not right. Yi Yuan has already died. The places that Heavenly Eagle has jurisdiction over naturally became ownerless lands. Such a large territory. If those martial artists don't have medicinal pills, how to cultivate? We're also blessing a region by doing so, right?" Flutterfeather's gaze turned slightly cold and was just about to fly into a rage when suddenly his expression changed, gazing toward the Sea of Law in alarm. But Empyrean Proud Cloud laughed wildly and said, "Ha ha ha! The Sea of Law has started dissipating. Brother Flutterfeather, you can help Yi Yuan collect his corpse already." Not far away, the Sea of Law that had been calm all along finally had activities. The vast power of law made the spiritual energy around Tianhua Plaza produce intense undulations. Rumble! Right at this time, the winds and clouds suddenly changed. The sky gradually became dim. In the S.P.A.C., where the Sea of Law was at, a violent storm suddenly swept up. Limitless heaven and earth spiritual energy closed in toward the Sea of Law frenziedly. Countless heaven and earth spiritual energy condensed to form a spiritual energy fog, turning corporeal. And this storm was formed with Yi Yuan as the center. Empyrean Flutterfeather was wildly elated in his heart. He then laughed coldly and said, "Collect corpse? Looks like there's no need anymore. I think you'd better think about how to give an account to the Alliance." Chapter 2052, All-Round Breakthrough. Chapter 2052, All-Round Breakthrough. How is this possible? Empyrean Proud Cloud's pupils constricted, with his expression changing wildly, looking at Yi Yuan, who was at the center of the storm, in disbelief. This kind of thing should not happen at all. Yi Yuan, he was actually breaking through? How could a person possibly last for as long as 10 years inside such a horrifying Sea of Law? The current Yi Yuan's imposing aura was extremely exuberant, with his life force thriving. How was there still any appearance of a dead person? 10 years had gone by. There were only a scanty few people left who were still waiting for Yi Yuan to wake up around Tianhua Plaza. Lin Tong was among them. Seeing this marvelous sight, Lin Tong's face showed wild ecstasy. His entire body was trembling in agitation. "Ha ha ha! Grandmaster Yi indeed didn't die. Indeed didn't die. I knew that he wouldn't die. He wouldn't die." Lin Tong said with near madness. In these 10 years, his mood fell to rock bottom bit by bit. He even could not hold on anymore, already. But thinking of Yi Yuan's grace to him, he still persisted. Around Tianyue Plaza, one figure after another suddenly appeared. Those Empyrean powerhouses that had not left Cloudpill great imperial capital showed up one after another. Actually, the majority of the Empyreans did not leave. They benefited a great deal inside the Sea of Law. Naturally, the earlier they comprehended, the more they digested. Hence, in these 10 years, a majority of the people all stayed behind in Cloudpill great imperial capital. At this time, everyone's faces were full of marvel. They never would have thought that not only did Yi Yuan come back to life, but he also even caused such a huge commotion. Looking at this, Yi Yuan's breakthrough was not simple. This kind of commotion was far stronger compared to breaking through to fourth firmament true G. Oh, D. Grandmaster, ye really can't be gauged with common sense. Who could have thought that he was still for 10 years? Not only did he come back to life, but there's also even such a huge breakthrough. Empyrean Lumen lamented. Looking at this scene, the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the circumference of 100,000 miles seems to have been drawn over by this sea of law. If it's all absorbed, even if a seventh or eighth firmament true G, decame, they would also blow up. Empyrean blazing exclaimed in admiration. The commotion of Yi Yuan's breakthrough was too vast. Even if these Empyreans saw it, their faces changed slightly too. While this bit of spiritual energy was nothing in their eyes, when placed in true G, D realm, it was absolutely horrifying. He started absorbing spiritual energy. An Empyrean opened his mouth. Everyone held their breaths. They all wanted to see just how far Yi Yuan could go. At this time, in the center of the storm, Yi Yuan revolved the Chaos Heavenspan cannon frenziedly and started swallowing like a whale. Yi Yuan thought, after 10 years of comprehending the Tao, finally I entered Ancestor Realm. According to my current ACCU, mulations, even if I break through directly to become a peak sixth firmament true G. There's also not the slightest problem. It's just that. I don't know if this spiritual energy is enough to use or not. Even so, the seals that his hands were making were not the least bit slow. 1 cl US tur of fog after another was directly absorbed into the body by him, and then being refined and stored in the origin pill. That was time. It was 1 CLU, tur after another, and not trace by trace. With Yi Yuan's ACCU mulations, he could have broken through to become a fourth firmament true G, long ago. Presently, comprehending Tao for 10 years inside the Sea of Law, this was a lucky chance that bystanders could only look but could not catch up to. With his current ACCU mulations directly breaking through, even reaching to be a peak sixth firmament true G, D would not have the slightest hidden danger. His aura rose steadily up, breaking through to become a fourth firmament true G, D without any surprises. Except, this was far from stopping yet. The current Yi Yuan was like a gluttonous behemoth, as if he could swallow the entire world in one mouthful. The speed of the spiritual energy condensing actually could not keep up with his speed of absorbing. Outside of the Sea of Law, the group of Empyrean powerhouses watched dumbfoundedly and tongue-tied. This absorbing spiritual energy like this, isn't he afraid of being stuffed until he explodes? Empyrean Proud Cloud opened his eyes wide and cried out in alarm. Stuffed until he explodes? You don't know, right? Yi Yuan has a perfect sixth transformation golden body. At the same time, he's absorbing spiritual energy to increase his realm, and he's also transforming his fleshy body. I'm afraid that he'll complain that this isn't enough. Empyrean Flutterfeather gave Empyrean Proudcloud a sidelong glance and said with a cold smile, finished talking without waiting for Empyrean Proudcloud to be surprised. He reached his hand out and beckoned, yelling, Yi Yuan, this Empyrean will lend you a helping hand. An Empyrean making a move, the heaven and earth spiritual energy within several hundreds of thousands of miles seemed to have been spurred, swarming over toward Tianyue Plaza frenziedly. Although Yi Yuan was formidable, his realm was after all too low. He wanted to gather more heaven and earth spiritual energy, but lacked the strength to match his will. Suddenly, he heard Empyrean Flutterfeather's bellow, and he could not help brightening up in his heart. The surrounding spiritual energy actually turned into fine rain, falling down from midair. But this spiritual energy fine rain would not land on the ground at all before being directly absorbed by Yi Yuan. Ha ha ha! Many thanks, Brother Flutterfeather, Yi Yuan said in a clear voice. With Empyrean Flutterfeather's help, Yi Yuan's aura soared straight to the highest heaven, his fleshy body and martial Dao realm rising frenziedly at the same time. At the same time, his divine soul also started fluctuating already, and actually started absorbing the sea of law. Rumble! Above the void, lightning flashed. Yi Yuan's essence, energy, and spirit, 3 paths breaking through at the same time. How outrageous was the commotion. Empyrean Proudcloud cried out in surprise. He's absorbing the sea of law. Is he mad? The other people's faces were also struck dumb with amazement. What was the sea of law? Putting it bluntly, that was a part of heavenly Tao. That was something that surmounted above all life. Even Empyrean powerhouses only comprehended inside too. How could they dare to show the slightest hint of blasphemy? But Yi Yuan actually wanted to absorb the sea of law. Ha ha! The sea is boundless. I'm only taking a grain of it. Absorb for me. Yi Yuan laughed heroically while absorbing the sea of law frenziedly, causing his divine soul to bolster up continuously. While he was unable to absorb so much of the sea of law, just absorbing a little and strengthening his divine soul was achievable. Dustless's voice suddenly sounded out. Yi Yuan, absorb more of the sea of law. Hurry! Yi Yuan did not have time to think too much. He just nodded slightly and poured a portion of the sea of law absorbed inside the soul-suppressing pearl. No idea how long had said either. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy was practically absorbed clean by Yi Yuan. His breakthrough finally stopped. He's now a peak 5th firmament, true G. Oh, D. Empyrean Proudcloud's pupils constricted, looking at that figure that walked over in astonishment, full of disbelief. Yi Yuan did not even move for 10 years. The moment he did so, it was earth-shattering, directly breaking through 2 minor realms, reaching peak 5th firmament, true G. Oh, D. One should not look at how it was only 2 minor realms. For the others, that required several thousands, even several tens of thousands of years of ACCU, mulation before it could be achieved. How horrifying was the spiritual energy required. But Yi Yuan merely used 10 years. What they did not know was that Yi Yuan made use of this boundless spiritual energy and also broke through to the late-stage 6th transformation golden body. As for his divine soul, it even reached peak rank 6 already. This breakthrough could virtually use a complete remolding to describe Yi Yuan. The Empyrean Pilljade, who had been silent all along, his gaze flickered incessantly, and said with vicissitudes of emotion, that kid, he bet correctly. Hoo-hoo, Brother Flutterfeather, many thanks for your assistance. If not for you, this year's breakthrough likely won't be so smooth. Yi Yuan took a few steps and arrived in front of Empyrean Flutterfeather and said while cupping his fists, Chapter 2053, shedding all pretenses of cordiality. Chapter 2053, shedding all pretenses of cordiality. At Heavenly Eagle, Duan Yunfei looked at Yun Yi with a look of awkwardness. Before leaving, he pledged in all solemnity, saying that Yun Yi would regret it. But now, it was him who regretted it. Yes, he came back again. After receiving the news of Yi Yuan's domineering breakthrough, he returned to Heavenly Eagle without any stop. Presently, the Pill Tower's administrator was Xian Yu. Toward these genius alchemists whose backgrounds were exceedingly profound, Xian Yu could not offend them either. He could only let them come back. Although he knew that Yi Yuan would not take these people in, how to decide it was Yi Yuan's business. He could not very well make a decision. For Yi Yuan too. Brother Yun, Duan Yunfei said with a bitter face. He persisted for as long as 10 years, but did not expect to fall short of success at the last second. But not coming to try one time, he was also not reconciled to it. Maybe Yi Yuan's heart would soften and take him in. Yuni looked at Duan Yunfei and said with a sigh, I urged you not to leave back then, but you wouldn't listen. You already held out for 10 years, so why was there a need to be anxious after that long? Duan Yunfei revealed a smile that was even uglier than crying and said, who could have thought that it would be like this? At that time, the whole world firmly believed that Yi Yuan already died. Duan Yunfei never dreamed that not only did Yi Yuan not die, but also his strength improved greatly instead. He already received the news from the Duan family that Yi Yuan's domineering breakthrough at Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital shocked the world. Essence, energy, and spirit, 3 paths breaking through at the same time, strength advancing by leaps and bounds, directly stepping into Ancestor Realm. Such a heaven-defying figure. He actually thought that he was dead, for sure previously. Freaking H-E-L. Your father's head must have been kicked by a donkey. Yun Yi shook his head and said, although I don't understand Grandmaster Yi, it seems like this level of figure will surely be proud to the extreme. Previously, even though you weren't too diligent in cultivating, he might have taken you in consideration of your willpower. But you left halfway, so it's likely very hard for him to take you in anymore. Duan Yunfei's expression choked up. Yun Yi's words dealt a blow to him. 10 years of persistence were SCR. 8 ped in one day. Sigh, even if there's only a trace of hope, I also want to stay. Hope that he'll take me in on the account of my 10-year persistence. Duan Yunfei said with a sigh. He currently regretted it until his intestines were green, but there was no regret medicine to eat in this world. At least, his hope was much higher compared to Luo Qianqi, those people. Ever since Yi Yuan's news came over, the geniuses that left previously, many came back again one after another. Presently, inside the Pill Tower, there were already close to 20 people. Toward Yun Yi and Yang Xian persisting like this, they were previously disdainful and scoff in derision at it before this, but now they were endlessly envious of these 2 people. At the very least, these 2 people's chances were greater than theirs. Inside Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital City Lord Manor, Yi Yuan's gaze looked towards Empyrean Proud Cloud scorchingly, and he said with a cold smile, Brother Proud Cloud, shouldn't you all give this Yi an explanation? Empyrean Proud Cloud gave a cold snort and said, what explanation do you want? I've already sent the order. All of this Empyrean's forces will immediately withdraw out of your sphere of influence. Could it be that this still isn't enough? Not enough, Yi Yuan said firmly and clearly. Empyrean Proud Cloud sneered and said, you say that it's not enough, and so it's not enough? Don't look at how you're sitting on the seat of a grandmaster, thinking that you can really throw hands with this Empyrean. Yi Yuan said coolly, throw hands? You're fit to? You, Empyrean Proud Cloud said, seemingly stifled. But Yi Yuan did not even look at him. looking at Empyrean Pilljade. He said, "Brother Pilljade, I wonder how you view this matter?" From Empyrean Flutterfeather there, Yi Yuan had long known that this Empyrean Proud Cloud and some of the other Empyreans were merely Empyrean Pilljade's lackeys. As long as he forced Empyrean Pilljade to lower his head, Empyrean Proud Cloud naturally would not even dare to let out a fart. Empyrean Pilljade's face fell, and he said, "Although younger brother Proud Cloud was wrong in this matter, during these 10 years, everyone thought that something happened to you. According to the Alliance's agreement, your territory was a land without a master. Therefore, younger brother Proud Cloud's crime is pardonable." Although Yun Yi wanted to acknowledge Yi Yuan as master, this was this, and that was that. In front of such tremendous profits, why would Empyrean Pilljade care about a measly little Yun Yi? One should not look at how the places that Empyrean Proud Cloud they all occupied was small. All of the Empyreans added up also reached 30% of the entire territory. Cloudpill Great Imperial Capital already lost the position of Alliance Chief and 10% of the share. So, how could they still make any concessions? No matter how genius that Yun Yi was, he was also just a junior. His Cloudpill Great Imperial Capital was such a colossal Tan. Wouldn't grooming 1 or 2 geniuses still be easily accomplished? Moreover, even if Yun Yi failed to acknowledge him as master, could it be that he could not teach him? No matter what, he was an ancestor realm powerhouse too. Empyrean Pilljade still had this bit of pride. Yi Yuan smiled coldly and said, "Land without a master? Haha, wanna act shamelessly, is it? Looks like you all won't shed tears without seeing the coffin." Empyrean Proud Cloud smiled coldly and said, "What? Could it be that you still really dare to withdraw from the Alliance? Do you think that Brother Flutterfeather really dares to play such high stakes with you? Once you guys withdraw, that's contending against the entire Southern Border's alchemy world. You weigh the consequences yourself." The other Empyreans, including several Grandmasters, all secretly nodded. Yi Yuan said that he had more than a dozen pill formulas in his hands. He merely said it verbally. Everyone would not take it seriously. But becoming enemies with the entire Southern Border's alchemy world, not everyone had this guts. After all, although Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure was formidable, the Southern Border also had quite a number of Heavenly Emperor powerhouses whose strength was not inferior to his. Empyrean Pilljade also said, "Brother Flutterfeather, once you withdraw from the Alliance, it's becoming enemies with everyone seated here." Although Yi Yuan's talent is high, he hasn't grown up after all and isn't able to refine rank 7 divine pills. Is it appropriate for you to bet like this? His words were threatening Empyrean Flutterfeather, and similarly also isolating Yi Yuan. Heavenly Eagle was merely a small place. If Empyrean Flutterfeather did not accompany Yi Yuan could not stir up any waves at all. Brother Flutterfeather, you have to think thrice before acting. Empyrean Blazing Sun also urged. The few great Grandmasters, even Empyrean Windrider, were persuading Empyrean Flutterfeather. Only Empyrean Lumen was silent. Clearly, they were joining hands to apply pressure and also joining hands to suppress Yi Yuan. Once they separated Empyrean Flutterfeather and Yi Yuan, Heavenly Eagle would be a piece of fatty meat. The alliance before would not count anymore. Previously, the various Grandmasters were in a state of disunity and did not condense together at all. But the shock that Yi Yuan's breakthrough this time brought to them was too strong, making them feel an immense threat. If the Myriad Treasure Tower had Flutterfeather and Yi Yuan joining hands, who in the Southern Border could still suppress them in the future. Hence, they unknowingly banded up together. Everyone was currently chirping and talking nonstop when Empyrean Flutterfeather suddenly stood up. gaze sweeping across everyone's faces, he said, "Coolly, you guys are also looking down on me, Flutterfeather. Too much. Since you all are so shameless, then wage war then. From this day forth, my myriad treasure tower will withdraw from the Southern Border Alliance. As for territory, all of us each will rely on their own ability. If you guys can ATCH territory from my myriad treasure tower's hands, feel free to come and give it a try." Everyone's faces could not help changing drastically when they saw the situation. They all did not expect that Empyrean Flutterfeather was actually so decisive. Chapter 2054. Great Battle Starting. Chapter 2054. Great battle starting the matter of the Myriad Treasure Tower withdrawing from the Southern Border Alliance stirred up titanic waves in the alchemy world. As one of the several Leviathans, the Myriad Treasure Tower's strength was second only to the Cloudpill Great Imperial Capital. But no matter how powerful, it was also merely one of the 7 Leviathans. Myriad Treasure Tower, withdrawing out of the Southern Border Alliance, was equivalent to waging war with the entire Southern Border. Although it was not a slaughter of real swords and spears, this kind of merchant war was even more intense than fighting. With the Myriad Treasure Tower's strength, could it survive under the besieging of the 6 great Leviathans and all of the alchemy factions? Empyrean Flutterfeather was too impulsive. For the sake of a measly little Yi Yuan, he's actually going to become enemies with the entire Southern Border. Grandmaster Yi is indeed impressive. Can even say that it's also not overboard to call him the Southern Border's #1 person. It's just that one person's strength is ultimately limited. You guys still don't know, right? The 6 Leviathans already opened their shops all in the Myriad Treasure Tower's territory. With this, Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure might even have to come forward. The 6 Leviathans move so quickly. Empyrean Flutterfeather's intestines should be green, with regret now, right? Everywhere in the Southern Border, the alchemy world was virtually all discussing this matter. In their view, Empyrean Flutterfeather's decision was too unwise. It was clearly plusing the Myriad Treasure Tower into the fire pit. At that time, it would probably need Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure to come forward and clean up the mess. Heavenly Emperor powerhouses normally did not intervene in the affairs of the secular world. But this kind of major thing, Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure likely would not be able to look on either. But at this time, on LUS, True's Gold Great Imperial Capital's Cloud Dream Mountain, golden light rippled, horrifying aura came out from it. Ziyu and Qin Yun, 2 people, were feeling this undulation, being incomparably amazed in their hearts. Too strong. This is the undulation of Ancestor Realm powerhouses. Didn't expect that Elder Yi stepped into the Ancestor Realm so quickly and actually fought until he's evenly matched with Master who broke through to Ancestor Realm. Ziyu said with alarm. They looked down on Yi Yuan back then, but Yi Yuan and Empyrean Flutterfeather's battle thoroughly astounded the 2 of them. Alchemy, intent, resonance, that kind of spectacular sight was still vivid in their impression until now. Qin Yun pursed her mouth and said, even if he broke through to the Ancestor Realm, so what? He still isn't Master's match. Master even defeated Empyrean Pilljade in this Cloud Pill Summit. The present Master is the Southern Border's #1 person. Ziyu also nodded and said, that's true. How can Yi Yuan possibly be Master's match? The 2 people were currently talking when that Astonis plusing aura was withdrawn. Yi Yuan and Flutterfeather 2 people walked out with big smiles. Ziyu, Qin Yun, Qin Chang, and the few elders immediately came up to greet, curious looks on their faces. Master, it must be you that one, right? You're the Southern Border's #1 alchemy Dao person. Ziyu said Briming with confidence. Flutterfeather laughed loudly when he heard that and said, Southern Border's #1 person? Ha ha ha. My B. Tox isn't warm from seeding yet, and it's S. And a T.C. head away by this brat. From henceforth, if a heavenly emperor doesn't come out, body can match him. Even those few old monsters who don't ask about world affairs are likely not Yi Yuan's match too. Flutterfeather laughed very joyfully, and he also said it very easily. But when it reached the ears of Ziyu and the rest, it was akin to a bolt out of the blue. This meaning was that their master was defeated. How is this possible? Master even defeated Empyrean Pilljade in the Cloud Pill Summit. Ziyu said in surprise. In their hearts, Empyrean Pilljade was powerful as stars in the sky, unable to be defeated at all. Now, their master broke through to the ancestor realm and defeated Empyrean Pilljade, who was the Southern Border's #1 person, an existence that body could defeat. But their master personally admitted that he was inferior to Yi Yuan. How could this guy be so freakish? Flutterfeather laughed in spite of himself and said, I fought 3 rounds with Yi Yuan and lost all of them. The rank 6 divine pills that he refined already infinitely approaches End Spirit Divine Pill. I'm inferior to him. Just like when Martial Dao Realm was cultivated to later stages, the span of the quality of Vast Spirit Divine Pills was also very huge. If divide Vast Spirit Divine Pills to lower, middle, and upper 3 grade, then the Vast Spirit Divine Pills that the 2 people refined in the past were middle grade. After stepping into Ancestor Realm, the Vast Spirit Divine Pills that Flutterfeather refined already reached high grade. But the current Yi Yuan, when refining Vast Spirit Divine Pills, could already reach peak high grade, being only a step away from End Spirit Divine grade. If Yi Yuan's strength improved further, refining End Spirit Divine Pills would likely be nothing difficult too. Of course, talking about it was easy, doing it was hard. After the Ancestor Realm, each step forward was far too difficult. Flutterfeather knew that Yi Yuan's talent was exceedingly high, but wanting to poke through this layer of windowpane paper within a short time likely could not be done. However, even so, Yi Yuan's strength was also sufficiently shocking already. At present in the land of Southern Border, if 8-star Alchemy DS did not come out, likely no one could compete with Yi Yuan anymore. As long as Yi Yuan broke through to the Empyrean realm, he would be the true Southern Border's #1 person. Hearing Empyrean Flutterfeather's words, Ziyu, Chinchong, and the rest all drew a cold breath. 3 rounds, Empyrean Flutterfeather actually did not even win 1 match. This showed that Yi Yuan already firmly suppressed Empyrean Flutterfeather in terms of strength. Yi Yuan smiled and said, Brother Flutterfeather, don't flatter me anymore. You bet the Myriad Treasure Tower on this Yi alone. This gamble is a little big. You're so confident in me? Flutterfeather smiled and said, Ho, they don't know your value, but this Empyrean knows. You could even create the soul-driving Tao fusion pill. So what do a mere few kinds of commonly seen medicinal pills count for? They all thought that you were bragging. When they witness your ability, I wonder what kind of expression it will be. In this game, I'll surely win and not lose. Why wouldn't I bet? Win the gamble, and the Myriad Treasure Tower will be the Southern Border's #1 major alchemy faction. All of them would have to bow their heads in submission. This Empyrean is already looking forward to the appearance of Pilljade, that old fogey lowering his head in front of you, and me now. Ha ha ha. After saying all these, Empyrean Flutterfeather even roared with laughter. He did not know Yi Yuan's trump card, but he believed in Yi Yuan. Others did not know the soul-driving Tao fusion pill's terror, but Empyrean Flutterfeather was perfectly clear. Those fools, originally something that could be resolved by lowering their heads, they insisted on forcing Yi Yuan to fly off the handle. Yi Yuan could not help laughing when he heard that and said, "Brother Flutterfeather is really a calculative demon. Hoo-hoo, just based on your trust, I'll hand over these 15 kinds of pill formulas to you." Finished talking, Yi Yuan casually beckoned and took out a pile of jade slips and placed them on the desk. Empyrean Flutterfeather's pupils constricted, and he cried out in surprise, "So many?" He casually picked up a jade slip and sunk his divine sense inside, his expression changing again. Without the slightest hesitation, he switched to another jade slip, continuing to look one jade slip after another. The expression on Empyrean Flutterfeather's face became more and more solemn. When he put down the last jade slip, his gaze when looking at Yi Yuan was akin to having seen a ghost. "Sigh, this Empyrean thought that I saw through you clearly, but only when I saw these pill formulas did this Empyrean know that I still underestimated you. Just based on these pill formulas, this Empyrean wants all of them to crawl to L.U.S. True's gold great imperial capital and lower their heads to you and me." Talking about this, rays of brilliant light seemingly appeared in Empyrean Flutterfeather's eyes. Yi Yuan's trump card gave him boundless confidence. Empyrean Flutterfeather knew that this battle would cause a one-sided sanguinary slaughter in the entire southern border's alchemy world. Chapter 2055. You can get lost. Chapter 2055. You can get lost. Long-wind great imperial capital. Martial Dao was flurries. H.I.+ing powerhouses countless. This place was in the scope of the myriad treasure towers' influence. Other forces could not stick their hands in it all. Of course, that was just limited to the Southern Border Alliance's rules that the other forces did not dare to enter. Now, it was different. Virtually overnight, Long-wind great imperial capital's medicine shops had a large bunch emerge like bamboo shoots after the rain. Tranquil Heart Pavilion, Purple Cloud Establishment, Swallow Pill Hall, so on and so forth. But the one with the biggest reputation naturally had to belong to Cloud Pill Establishment. Cloud Pill Establishment was a super faction that did not pale in comparison to the Myriad Treasure Tower. Its appearance symbolized a full-scale war between the Myriad Treasure Tower and the Cloud Pill Establishment, two great superforces. After these medicine shops were opened, they immediately formed a united front. Unified fixed price, unified distribution, unified sales. The objective was very simple: target the Myriad Treasure Tower and chase the Myriad Treasure Tower out of Longwind Great Imperial Capital. Ding Xiao, Cloud Pill Establishment's head shopkeeper, was skilled in management and had once chased all of 5 great Grandmasters factions out of a great imperial capital. Among them was the Myriad Treasure Tower. Empyrean Pill Jade, sending him to Longwind Great Imperial Capital, was clearly to give the Myriad Treasure Tower a fatal blow. The news of the Myriad Treasure Tower and southern border going to war already spread throughout the entire southern border, and Longwind Great Imperial Capital had an utmost significance to this war. Once the Myriad Treasure Tower was chased out of Longwind Great Imperial Capital, they would likely have to face an all-round defeat. At that time, a rout would be like a landslide. It would be hard for the Myriad Treasure Tower to have the strength to salvage the situation anymore. At this time, inside the newly opened Cloud Pill Establishment's top-floor hall, there was a large gathering. The various major forces shopkeepers were all gathered here, discussing the ways to target the Myriad Treasure Tower. Shopkeeper Ding, that Cho Tianyu is impervious to reason and advice. We've already lowered the prices 30%. Not only did he not lower the price, but he also announced to the outside world instead that after 3 months, the prices of all of the Myriad Treasure Tower's medicinal pills will rise 20%. I think that the Myriad Treasure Tower is taking the road to ruin here. Tranquil Heart Pavilion's shopkeeper said with a contemptuous look. The other shopkeepers also nodded slightly, showing visible delight on their faces. Originally, they thought that it was a life and death battle. They did not expect that the myriad treasure tower was too weak to stand up to the compat. One, tie-in. Another shopkeeper reminded. Shopkeeper Ding, although we're fighting a price war, it's bound to cause long-winded great imperial capital's martial artists frenzied s. And A.T.C. Hing. At that time, the medicinal pills must ensure adequate stock. Ding Xiao nodded and said, Brother Lin rest assured. Those big shots above know the importance of this battle and already order their respective factions 5-star and 6-star alchemy G. DS to go all out in refining pills. You don't need to worry about the stock of medicinal pills. Only then did shopkeeper Lin let out a sigh of relief and said, Then this Lin can relax. After this battle, even if Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure takes action, the Myriad Treasure Tower's share will certainly shrink substantially too. This level of war, what it competed in was not whose household's 7-star alchemy G. DS were more. Looking at the entire southern border, Empyrean powerhouses were extremely scarce too. Reaching this realm, everyone would find 7-star alchemy G. DS to refine pills in private and not go to medicine shops to purchase medicinal pills. The truly Civ consumer demographics were the celestial deity realm and true D realm martial artists. They had immense purchasing power and also very high demands for medicinal pills. Hence, whoever that could capture the hearts of this group of martial artists would be the final winner. For the same of this long-wind battle today, Empyrean Pilljade united the 5 great peak holy lands and already prepared a certain kill strike. They would not give Empyrean Flutterfeather any chance at all. But at this time, Ding Xiao's brows furrowed, and he said, That might be the case, but according to what I know, Chou Tianyu isn't such a foolish person. Even if they are confident that the quality of medicinal pills is better than ours, it's also impossible to take the initiative to raise prices. What I'm worried about is that they have other contingencies. Shopkeeper Lin laughed loudly and said, Contingency? What contingencies are there? I heard that for the sake of this war, the big shots gathered all of the most elite 5-star and 6-star alchemy G. DS together. We're a level higher than them in terms of medicinal pills quality. When we achieve big success on our first operation in long-wind great imperial capital, there will be no more myriad treasure tower in the future. Yeah, Shopkeeper Ding is too cautious. Although the myriad treasure tower is strong, what do they count for compared to the entire southern border? Tranquil Heart Pavilion's shopkeeper said. Shopkeeper Ding is probably afraid of them rolling out some new medicinal pill, right? Hoo-hoo, my lord has long said before. Even if they have 1 or 2 new kinds of medicinal pills pill formula in their hands, it will also be of no avail. Our medicinal pills' quality is good, and the prices are low. Martial artists aren't fools either, so why would they be drawn over by 1 or 2 kinds of new medicinal pills? Purple Cloud Establishment's shopkeeper said with a smile. Ding Xiao's brows gradually smoothened out, and he said with a smile, Hoo-hoo, it was indeed me who was overly sensitive about this battle. This Ding has managed things for many years and completely can't see their chances of victory. Even if an 8-star alchemy G, D makes a move, it's also impossible to reverse the situation. At Pill Tower of Heavenly Eagle Imperial City, suddenly someone cried out in surprise. Lord Yi Yuan came. Lord Yi Yuan came to the Pill Tower. Yun Yi's entire body trembled. He knew that the moment of judgment had finally come. But the others used pitying gazes to look at Yun Yi, and also pitying gazes to look at Yi Yuan. Grandmaster, you finally can't hold out anymore, right? Now, it isn't him choosing us, but whether we're willing to acknowledge him as master or not anymore. Once the Myriad Treasure Tower is defeated, if Grandmaster Yi wants to preserve his life, the best method will be to take us in as disciples and draw support from our factions to preserve his life. Otherwise, Heavenly Eagle's destruction will be near at hand. A shame about Brother Yun Yi. With Grandmaster Ye's pride, he likely won't choose him, no matter what. Everyone discussed with laughter. Yi Yuan slowly walked in front of everyone. Yun Yi Yangxian pays respect to Master Yi. Yun Yi and Yang Xian directly knelt down. As for the rest, they had proud faces, not having the intention of kneeling at all. Ho-hu, Brother Yun, you still want to acknowledge him as master until now? Duan Yunfei said with a disdainful smile. Yi Yuan's expression was calm as he looked at Duan Yunfei lightly and said, "Don't you want to acknowledge me as your master?" Duan Yunfei smiled and said, "Of course I want to acknowledge you as my master, but the winds of fortune changed. Now, it should be you begging me to acknowledge you as my master, and it's not me taking the initiative to have you accept me." Yun Yi's brows furrowed, and he said in a cold voice, "Duan Yunfei, you're insolent to actually be disrespectful toward Master Yi." Duan Yunfei did not care in the slightest, and said, "Brother Yi, he might not even be able to protect his small life now. What are you still being so respectful toward him for?" Yi Yuan took no notice of it. He just smiled faintly, gazed sweeping across the other people's faces, and opened his mouth and said, "You all think so as well?" At this time, Luo Tianqi stepped out of the ranks and said to Yi Yuan with cupped fists, "Grandmaster Yi, as long as you're willing to take me in as a disciple and devote all your attention to teach me, my Luo family will definitely ensure your safety. You should know, behind my Luo family is Heavenly Emperor Darktime." Another person, a 6-star genius, said, "Grandmaster Yi, my high family has a deep relations, HI+P, with Empyrean Pilljade. As long as you're willing to accept me as a disciple, my high family will definitely put in a few good words in front of Empyrean Pilljade." In their view, all of them were now Yi Yuan's protective talismans. No matter how proud Yi Yuan was, did he still dare to not take them in as disciples? His best way out right now was to be everyone's master. Yi Yuan looked at Luo Tianqi with a smile that was not a smile and said, "You're called Luo Tianqi?" Luo Tianqi clasped his hands and said, "Yes, Grandmaster Yi." Yi Yuan nodded his head slightly and said, "You can get lost." Chapter 2056, Surprising Choice. Chapter 2056, Surprising Choice. Luo Tianqi looked at Yi Yuan with a disbelieving face. He was even thinking that he heard it wrongly. At this juncture, Yi Yuan actually still made him get lost. It was not just Luo Tianqi. The rest also looked at Yi Yuan with shocked faces. "Grandmaster Yi, I think that you haven't had a clear understanding of the current situation. Once the Myriad Treasure Tower is defeated, do you feel that you can still be leisurely and carefree in this Heavenly Eagle Imperial City still, without the Myriad Treasure Tower's protection? Empyrean Pilljade, they all will likely be the first to target you." Luo Tianqi said with a cold smile. He felt that there was a need to analyze the current situation for Yi Yuan. Otherwise, Yi Yuan might feel that he was still that high and mighty grandmaster. Yi Yuan looked at Luo Tianqi and said calmly, "You said too much C.R.A.P. I asked you to get lost. Didn't you hear me?" Luo Tianqi laughed due to extreme fury and said, Good. That day when you become a bereaved dog. I want to see what you have to be this arrogant. At that time, don't you regret it?" Finished talking, Luo Tianqi turned around and was about to leave. "Wait!" Yi Yuan suddenly yelled. Luo Tianqi's footsteps paused. Turning around to look at Yi Yuan, he smiled coldly and said, "What? Regretting it? It's already too late to regret now. Yi Yuan had a lazy appearance as he said coolly, I asked you to roll 1. Didn't you hear me? Luo Tianqi's face changed, and he said in a solemn voice, You dare to humiliate me? I, Luo Tianqi, am a member of the Luo family. Do you want to wage war with my Luo family? Yi Yuan's gaze turned cold. A terrifying pressure crushed over towards Luo Tianqi. Bang! Without the slightest strength to resist, Luo Tianqi was directly pressed firmly onto the ground by Yi Yuan's pressure. By the side, the pupils of Yun Yi and the rest of the true Ji, D-realm martial artists shrunk, looking at this scene with aghast. There was nothing to say about Yi Yuan's alchemy talent. They prostrated on all fours in admiration. But they never would have thought that Yi Yuan's martial Tao was actually so strong too, although Luo Tianqi was true Ji. D-realm, pressing the other party on the ground, able to move just based on pressure, they could not do it. Yi Yuan did not have an overbearing personality. So if they did not want to acknowledge him as their master, then just leave. But this Luo Tianqi was too arrogant, using whatever Luo family to pressure him at the drop of a hat. Did Luo Tianqi really take him to be easy to bully? Even if Yi Yuan was made out of clay, he would have some anger too. Whatever you're unhappy about, say however you like behind my back. But saying it in front of me, you're in the wrong. Starting from now, until you roll out of Heavenly Eagle, as long as let me hear one more superfluous word, you don't need to leave anymore. Don't doubt whether I dare or not. You can very well give it a try, Yi Yuan said coolly. Done talking, Yi Yuan withdrew his aura. Luo Tianqi felt like a giant mountain moved away from his body. But no matter how arrogant he was, he also did not dare to bet with his life. He could only keep silent and say nothing. He started rolling on the ground, rolling out of the city little by little. Tianping, you send him out of the city. If he still dares to talk nonsense, directly kill him. Yi Yuan instructed the Ning Tianping beside him. Ning Tianping chuckled and said, Yes, Your Excellency. Ning Tianping looked toward Luo Tianqi and did not have the slightest sympathy. To dare posture in front of His Excellency, one needed to be prepared to have their face slapped by His Excellency. This guy did not even figure out the situation and dare to posture. He truly did not know what he was talking about. His Excellency even dared to throw hands at Empyrean Pilljade. Could he be what you, a puny little Luo family celestial deity realm, can blaspheme? Your family's ancestor coming was more like it. The others were all silent like cicadas in winter. How could they still dare to posture in front of Yi Yuan? At this time, Yi Yuan slowly opened his mouth again and said, I know that you guys feel that Heavenly Eagle is near destruction and feel that I should take you all as disciples to preserve myself. However, you're thinking too much. Back then, I said it very clearly at the Cloud Pill Summit. If you want to acknowledge me as your master, you have to undergo repeated trials. I gave you all the chance, but it was you who didn't cherish it yourselves. Hence, Yun Yi and Yang Xian stay behind. The others can all scram. Yun Yi's entire body trembled, looking at Yi Yuan with a look of surprise. Duan Yunfei similarly had a look of disbelief as he said, Grandmaster Yi, are you mistaken? Yun Yi is Empyrean Pilljade's descendant. You're actually going to take him in as disciple? Yi Yuan said coolly, what does that matter? A battle is a battle. Accepting disciples is accepting disciples. These are two different matters to begin with. It's you all who wanted to lump them together yourselves. I said it before. I first look at one's character when taking in a disciple, look at disposition second, and third is talent. If Yun Yi was the same as you all, then even if his talent is higher than the heavens, I'll also make him get lost. but he's more of an alchemist compared to you all. His future accomplishments will also be what you all can only look up to." Yun Yi's entire body trembled and actually wept from extreme joy when he heard that the Myriad Treasure Tower was breaking away from the Southern Border Alliance. Yun Yi already despaired. He knew that it was impossible for Yi Yuan to take him in as a disciple. Who would take the descendant of their enemy as a disciple? But he never imagined that Yi Yuan gave him a huge surprise. Dom, dom, dom. Yun Yi kowtowed 3 times in a row to Yi Yuan and said while shedding tears of grat, "One, two'd. Master Yi, Yun Yi will follow you in this lifetime and will never change until death." Yi Yuan smiled and said, "You could lay down your Blee status and come to the pill tower to be a little medicine boy. 10 years of persistence is sufficient to see your sincere heart toward alchemy. Other people all said that I wouldn't accept you, yet I'm going to make the world see that his pill jade's descendant will definitely surpass his predecessor." Yun Yi had a resolute face as he said, "Yes, Yun Yi definitely won't let Master Yi down." Yi Yuan nodded his head and turned to Yang Xian and said, "Yang Xian, from today onward, you're the 4th disciple under me. Yi Yuan, come, pay respects to your senior apprentice brother and sister." Beside Yi Yuan stood Bai Chun and Ning Siyu. Ever since entering the Heavenspan world, he only took Bai Chun 1 disciple. Ning Siyu was the 2nd. Yang Xian had a look of agitation and knelt down toward Yi Yuan. Following that, he bowed to Bai Chun, Ning Siyu, and Yun Yi. No one could have thought that the 2 disciples which Yi Yuan accepted in the end would be the Cloud Pill Summit's 1st place and 1st place from the bottom. Yun Yi's ident. 1. Tai was special, so no one thought that Yi Yuan would take him in. Yang Xian was even more unremarkable and did not even have any background. Yet these 2 people entered Yi Yuan's doorway in the end. Duan Yunfei and the rest looked at this scene with their faces full of envy. With Yi Yuan's guidance, these 2 people attaining a higher level in alchemy in the future was highly probable. But they missed this opportunity. It was just that in this world, there was no regret medicine that could be eaten. What Yi Yuan said was right. He already gave them the chance, but it was they themselves who did not cherish it. The Myriad Treasure Tower and Southern Border Alliance's battle would probably last for 10 years, or even as long as several decades, no matter how fast it was. And this period of time was sufficient for Yi Yuan to teach them many things. Even though no one thought that the Myriad Treasure Tower would win, they were still very envious. "All right, you all can go now," Yi Yuan said coolly. The expressions of Duan Yunfei and the rest changed, finally still leaving unwillingly. They did not dare to disobey Yi Yuan. Luo Qianqi was the best example if they disobeyed him. After everyone left, Yi Yuan opened his mouth and said coolly, "The 2 of you cultivated for 10 years. Are there any harvests?" Yun Yi bowed in salute and said, "Replying master, Yun Yi benefited a great deal. Those people capitalized on that they were Blee and turned their noses up at this training. But they didn't know that master was actually teaching us." 1. Get lost / roll has the same word. Chapter 2057. What's hard to say? Chapter 2057. What's hard to say? Yi Yuan looked at Yun Yi, his eyes revealing a trace of appreciation. Someone who was not a fool or crazy could not see through his intent at all. Those so-called geniuses were short-sighted and only saw the benefits in front of them. Their achievements in alchemy would definitely be limited. They proudly said they were smart, but in reality, they were unbelievably dumb. Only fools and lunatics in those people's eyes had a heart that genuinely yearned for the Tao. Did those people think that talent could resolve everything? This was the dumbest notion. Without endless hard work, without great willpower, great resolve, why would the door of great Tao open to you? I only have hard work and foundation, these two words when I teach disciples. You need to bear it in mind. Yi Yuan said coolly. Yun Yi, two people became solemn and hurriedly said, Yes, master. Disciple will bear it in mind. How could Yi Yuan not tell what the two people were thinking in their hearts? He said, What shortcuts are there to take on the path of the Tao? If you ask Master how to achieve the Tao, Master can only tell you that the Tao is under your feet. Being down to earth is the Tao. You guys saw CU radiated with splendor during the Cloud Pill Summit, but you don't know how much hearts, HI plus PS, and effort she put in at the back. Therefore, if you want to learn whatever pinnacle alchemy Tao from me, you can leave right now. I have nothing to teach you. The two people's faces changed, repeatedly saying that they dare not. But the shock in their hearts could not use words to describe it all. They were unable to imagine senior apprentice sister CU's efforts. Then, how much was sunk in behind Master's glory? Master, disciple understands. From today onward, disciple will lay down all pride and follow by Master's side. Yun Yi was not trying to calm Yi Yuan down. Those words made him have a feeling of being enlightened all at once. And these 10 years of bitter cultivation also made him more able to understand the meaning behind Master's words. Since that was the case, start over from the bottom, then. It's just, Master, you and Empyrean Flutterfeather withdrawing from the Southern Border Alliance this time. Is it really fine? Yun Yi said worriedly. He was not taking Yi Yuan's side, but Yun Yi was very conflicted currently. After all, one was his great-grandfather, and the other was his master. Whichever getting hurt was not what he wished to see. Ning Siyu smiled when she heard that and said, You guys are also looking down on Master too much. You'll understand his means very soon. 3 months pa-s, said in a twinkle. On this day, early morning, a group of shopkeepers gathered at Cloud Pill establishment once more. Ding Xiao said in high and vigorous spirits, Gentlemen, we didn't fail to live up to expectations. These 3 months, we fought an extremely beautiful war. At present, we've already controlled more than 70% of this long-wind great imperial capitals market. Reaching this step presently, no matter how capable Chou Tianyu is, he's also powerless to turn the tables. Ha ha ha. I can finally report on the fulfillment of the mission. Maybe we don't need 10 years, and the Myriad Treasure Tower will be thoroughly defeated by us, Shopkeeper Lin said with a big laugh. Another shopkeeper said with a laugh, Haha, that is inevitable. No matter how strong the Myriad Treasure Tower is, no matter how strong Empyrean Flutterfeather is, no matter how strong Yi Yuan is, it's also impossible to be the entire Southern Border Alliance's match. The resources in our hands, apart from those reclusive forces, we occupy more than 50% of the southern border. If we lose like this, then we can find a piece of tofu to kill ourselves. Ding Xiao nodded his head and said, According to the news that I grasp, the most elite alchemists of the entire southern border have already been gathered at the back, refining medicinal pills without ceasing. These medicinal pills will be provided to us in an endless stream. We'll be able to extend out to the various imperial capitals with Longwind Great Imperial Capital as our foundation very soon. When the group of shopkeepers heard, they could not help being greatly roused. Controlling 70% of the market, it was also no wonder that these shopkeepers were all fired up with boundless enthusiasm. The major and minor factions present were likely no fewer than 40 to 50 in total. This virtually represented the entire southern border's pinnacle factions. Defeat, this sort of term, would not appear in their dictionaries at all. Even if Yi Yuan had some trump cards in his hands, in their view, it was merely eking out a meager existence and delaying the time of the Myriad Treasure Tower's defeat by a little. Oh, right. Didn't Cho Tianyu say that they were going to raise prices? Ha ha. I want to see who will still go to the Myriad Treasure Tower to buy medicinal pills after raising prices. Shopkeeper Lin suddenly thought of something and said with a big laugh, "Things are bad. Things are bad." Shopkeeper Lin's voice had yet to fade when a manservant directly rushed into the hall and said in a great panic. Ding Xiao snorted coldly and berated. "What is it? Making such a big fuss over nothing. Where's the sense of propriety?" How could the manservant still care about being punished? Pointing at the opposite, he said, "Shopkeeper Ding, things are bad. The Myriad Treasure Tower opposite is already almost packed until it's bursting. Those martial artists have all gone crazy, desperately fighting to purchase their medicinal pills. The martial artists that were originally here at our side have all ran over to their side now." "What did you say?" Ding Zhao's eyes went wide, somewhat doubting if his ears heard wrongly or not. Why would those martial artists run to the Myriad Treasure Tower opposite? The other shopkeepers' faces were full of a disbelieving expression. Their notion at this time was unusually unanimous. That was that this manservant was lying. The Myriad Treasure Tower raised prices on all medicinal pills today. So why would martial artists go and fight to buy their medicinal pills at their place? "What nonsense are you talking about?" Ding Xiao said in a cold voice. Although he knew that this manservant did not dare to lie to him, he was still unable to believe it. That manservant had a bitter face as he said, "Shopkeeper Ding, even if you lend this lowly one a gall, this lowly one also wouldn't dare to talk rubbish." Plus Ding Xiao frowned and said, "Go, let's hurry up and go take a look." As he said this, he took the lead and went down the building. When he just arrived in the audience hall, Ding Xiao was stopped by a few people. He hurriedly switched to a smiling face and went up to greet. These few were all their Cloud Pill establishment's major clients and could not be offended. "Family Head Su, Family Head Ren, what wind blew you guys here?" Ding Xiao cupped his fists and said, smilingly, these two people were precisely two of Long-Wind Great Imperial Capital's 5 major families, the family heads of the Su family and Ren family. These few months, Ding Xiao expended a Herculean effort and unleashed all of his abilities before prying them over from the Myriad Treasure Tower's hands. Presently, these 2 major families' medicinal pills were all provided by their Cloud Pill establishment. Family head Su smiled and said, "This Su coming today together with younger brother Ren is because there's something that we want to request Shopkeeper Ding to help us with." Ding Xiao hurriedly smiled and said, "Easily arranged. You two are this Ding's financiers. I'll naturally offer my services. Is it that the medicinal pills aren't enough to use recently? No problem. I'll have servants send a batch of medicinal pills over right away." Family head Su waved his hand and said, "No need, no need. The Su family's medicinal pills for cultivation is enough." Ding Xiao said in surprise, "Then what did family head Su come to find this Ding for?" Family head Su took a look at family head Ren with some difficulty. Family head Ren clearly had a hot temper and said impatiently, "What's hard to say? Shopkeeper Ding, this Ren and family head Su coming this time. It's to terminate our 2 families' contracts with the Cloud Pill establishment. In the future, concerning the medicinal pills that our 2 families use for cultivation, we won't need to trouble the Cloud Pill establishment anymore." Chapter 2058. The opponent is too strong. Chapter 2058. The opponent is too strong. "What? You want to terminate the contract?" Ding Zhao's expression changed, somewhat doubting whether he heard wrongly or not. Terminating the contract was nothing to the Cloud Pill establishment, but to the Su family and Ren family, it was a big problem. Family head Su smiled and said, "Don't say it so unpleasantly." This Su went back and discussed with the family clan's elders and felt that the medicinal pills we ordered at our Cloud Pill establishment are too many. So, how astute was Ding Xiao? He immediately realized that something was not right. Could it be that these two great families were pulled over by the myriad treasure tower opposite? But just what kind of conditions did the other party give to be able to make these two great families terminate the contract at the risk of offending the entire Southern Border Alliance? The reason why the Southern Border Alliance was powerful was because they formed an ent, one tie, bound together for good or bad. If any faction dared to offend them, they could completely force them out and not provide medicinal pills for them. This kind of outcome, even for a powerful city like long-winded great imperial capital, it was also too much to bear. Ding Zhao's two eyes narrowed slightly, and his tone became cold as he said, "Family head Su, family head Run, do you know what the consequences of terminating the contract is? The consequences of offending our Southern Border Alliance isn't what you guys can bear." The warning hint of these words was already very thick. Family head Su's face changed, but family head Ren did not have that great of a temper. Snorting coldly, he said, "Offend, then offend. What's the big deal? It's already enough for our Ren family to cooperate with the Myriad Treasure Tower. Previously, we were bewitched by you. That's how we lost the initiative. This Ren hasn't even settled the score with you yet." The moment these words came out, the faces of Ding Xiao and the group of shopkeepers changed greatly. A measly little Ren family really had the confidence to lose all decorum with the Southern Border Alliance. Who gave him the confidence? The Myriad Treasure Tower? On what basis? When family head Su saw that family head Ren left no room to salvage things, he let out a sigh and said, "Shopkeeper Ding, truly sorry about it. To choose the lesser of two evils, my Su family seriously can't continue the cooperation with you. Your medicinal pills are simply garbage compared to the Myriad Treasure Tower. Farewell." Finished talking. Family head Su cupped his fists and directly left. Family head Ren naturally would not stay either, following family head Su and leaving the Cloud Pill establishment. Ding Xiao stood there, his expression gloomy and erratic. Garbage. Several dozen factions gathered the most elite alchemists. The medicinal pills refined were actually called garbage. Ding Xiao was unable to accept this fact. He wished to rush up and tear family head Su's mouth into pieces. Would he believe this kind of lousy reason? Just what's going on here? What in the world did the Myriad Treasure Tower do? Shopkeeper Ling lost his previous composure long ago, astonishment on his face. The others also had panic looks. Clearly, they were completely mentally unprepared about this sudden change. Who could have thought that their 3 months of hard work, the Myriad Treasure Tower, only used one morning and completely overturned the situation? However, these Su and Rin Tu families were just the beginning. Following that, one batch after another of big and small family factions actually all came to pay a visit and terminate their contracts. Not just Cloud Pill Establishment, but also Tranquil Heart Pavilion, Purple Cloud Establishment, and the rest. The orders that they previously negotiated practically all fell short of success at the last step now. Continuously for an entire day, they spent it in the midst of being utterly exhausted from overwork. It was only all the way until the evening, when a series of medicinal pills were presented in front of the shopkeepers, did they know why family head Su called their medicinal pills garbage. What are all these medicinal pills? Where did the Myriad Treasure Tower get the pill formulas to actually be able to refine so many terrifying medicinal pills? When shopkeeper Lin was talking, his entire body was quivering. He had galloped across the market all his life and had yet to encounter such a powerful enemy before. The other party did not use any management methods at all and did not need any roping in or stomping at all and completely did not need deliberate marketing. Once the medicinal pills were out, all of the opponents were directly crushed. This was absolute strength. It did not require that many flashy methods at all. Just like an Empyrean powerhouse dealing with a true G. Oh, D-Realm, what schemes or intrigues did they need to use? One completely did not need such a thing. Simply throwed a big slap over, directly pulverizing all of them. This should be the evolved version of the Buddha Jade Pill, right? This is the evolved version of the Chaos Origin One Breath Pill. My G, OD, virtually all of the common medicinal pills in the market all have evolved versions. A shopkeeper said with a bitter smile, they directly advanced medicinal pills by an era. Compared to these medicinal pills, ours are indeed rubbish. H. Plus, how to still compete. Even if we have several hundred parties teaming up, we're also not the myriad treasure towers match. This kind of opponent isn't on the same level at all. The boundless enthusiasm from the morning was long gone without a trace already. These shopkeepers all seemed to be like eggplants. T by Frost, being unable to perk up at all. Combining 6 great peak holy lands coupled with several dozen major factions, such a long period of meticulous planning, it was completely a joke. Ding Xiao let out a slight sigh and said, "This matter is already not what we can influence. It's better to leave it to the lords to go worry about it. Our opponent is too powerful." The current Ding Xiao had a feeling of all hopes being dashed to pieces. He had sunk and risen all his life and exchanged blows with countless powerful opponents before. It could be said to be emerging victorious in every battle, but this time he felt powerless. Crossing swords with this kind of opponent, one did not have any chance at all. He could feel that there was seemingly a giant shadow behind the myriad treasure tower, manipulating this war. That person was Yi Yuan, Grandmaster Yi, in front of Grandmaster Yi. Ding Xiao felt like he was just like a child. No matter how you fought with flashy moves, the other party did not take you seriously at all. Although he said to leave it to the various lords verbally, actually, Ding Xiao understood in his heart that this war, the Southern Border Alliance, already completely lost. Even if it was the 6 great grandmasters joining hands, they were also unable to salvage this kind of declining trend, unless they could join hands and take out a batch of even more advanced medicinal pills. Except, how was that possible? Even if the medicine ancestor took action, he might not be able to do it too. One bad news after another flew to Cloud Pill great imperial capital like SCR, a PS of paper. All of Longwind great imperial capital's Cloud Pill establishments' medicinal pills cannot be sold, and we are already unable to sustain our expenditure. Shopkeeper Ding requests to withdraw from Longwind great imperial capital. Ling Yun great imperial capital's Cloud Pill establishment has already gone bankrupt. Shopkeeper, he requests to withdraw. Autumn Day great imperial capital's Tranquil Heart Pavilion has already gone out of business. Shopkeeper Foam requests to withdraw. In the audience hall, Empyrean Pilljade's expression was grim until it was virtually about to drip water. Among these intel, many places were not the myriad treasure towers territory, but the 6 great holy lands territory. It was as if the myriad treasure tower opened up throughout the entire southern border's great imperial capitals overnight. Furthermore, they only used an extremely short time and made the Southern Border Alliance crumble like Cruz. Plussing dead leaves. The myriad treasure tower's new medicinal pills were too domineering. As long as one was not a fool, they would definitely choose the myriad treasure tower's medicinal pills. So what if prices rose? Even if it rose 20% the price, the myriad treasure tower's medicinal pills cost performance was still a great deal higher than ordinary medicinal pills. This war already did not have suspense. Chapter 2059. All-round defeat. Chapter 2059. All-round defeat. TT this. How can this be? Brother Pilljade, You mustn't leave us alone to die. Yi Yuan, he is definitely taking revenge on us. Hearing one news after another transmitting over, Empyrean Proud Cloud looked like he lost his wits. The Southern Border Alliance was actually all-round defeated within a short half a month's time, especially his territory. It was shockingly already a severely hit area. The Myriad Treasure Tower even did a 3% discount in his territory. Furthermore, the medicinal pills were very plentiful. This kind of situation absolutely could not be seen elsewhere, because right now, the Myriad Treasure Tower's medicinal pills were extremely sought after. Even if it rose 20% in price, it was still hard to seek out a single pill. Although the Myriad Treasure Tower was well prepared this time, they could not stand up to the tidal, water-like martial artists. No matter how many the medicinal pills were, it was also impossible to satisfy the requirements of all martial artists. After all, there were too many martial artists and too few alchemists. Hence, Empyrean Proud Cloud's territory was virtually crushed by the Myriad Treasure Tower already. His medicine shops could not continue operating anymore. Even a blind person could also tell that the Myriad Treasure Tower and Yi Yuan were deliberately squelching Empyrean Proud Cloud. Empyrean Pilljade's brows furrowed, and he said with a cold snort, "How to save you? Our 6 great holy lands already can't save ourselves now, and you're still counting on us to go and save you? Didn't you hear? Just earlier, East Fence Great Imperial Capital had already completely fallen and became the Myriad Treasure Tower's territory. East Fence Great Imperial Capital was a very important Great Imperial Capital in Empyrean Pilljade's hands. Its status was similar to that of the Myriad Treasure Tower's Longwind Great Imperial Capital. Even East Fence Great Imperial Capital had fallen into enemy hands. It could be imagined how dangerous the current situation was. At this time, Empyrean Wenlan could not resist saying, "Humph! Proud Cloud, you still have the cheek to say that. If not for you, this kind of situation also wouldn't have appeared. Back then, if you lowered your head to Yi Yuan, how can we get into such a mess?" His losses were also extremely devastating, his mood very bad. Seeing Empyrean Proud Cloud jump out, he finally could not resist bursting out. Empyrean Proud Cloud said in a great rage, "Wenlan, you're shooting me at this time now? Back then, I wonder who was it that banged his fist on the table and yelled bravo, and even said that they wanted a share of the loot? You." Empyrean Wenlan was stifled, but he was unable to refute Empyrean Proud Cloud. When Yi Yuan withdrew from the Southern Border Alliance, Empyrean Wenlan clapped his hands and cheered at that time. Furthermore, in the beginning, because of face, he was said to make a move to swallow Yi Yuan's territory. But later, he had indeed reached his hands out to Yi Yuan's territory. "Enough!" Empyrean Pilljade yelled furiously and said, "What's the use of arguing now? If you have the time, then why not think about how to salvage our position in this declining state?" Empyrean Windrider said, "Right now, it isn't just the problem of defeat. For the sake of the operation this time, we've virtually mobilized all of the Southern Border's elite alchemists and refined large batches of medicinal pills. If these medicinal pills are unable to be sold, they will rot inside the warehouses." Empyrean Blazing Sun also said with a solemn face, "This time is different from the past. As long as medicinal pills are stored properly, they will always sell. But these medicinal pills that Yi Yuan took out have already rolled out across the board in the Southern Border. Once they become conventional medicinal pills, our medicinal pills won't be able to sell at all." Empyrean Lumen let out a slight sigh and said, "I urged you all back then, but you all wouldn't listen. Now, it's too late to regret." The others were silent. Empyrean Lumen warned them back then. saying that Yi Yuan's understanding of alchemy Tao was extremely deep. Creating several kinds of new pill formulas was not a problem. But no one believed. It was just that Empyrean Lumen was still extremely shocked in his heart. He thought that he already thought highly of Yi Yuan. He did not expect that Yi Yuan's performance still exceeded his imaginations. As soon as these medicinal pills emerged, it was like martial artists cleansing their marrows, making the entire southern border's alchemy world have an overall reorganization. To the 6 great holy lands, the blow was close to catastrophic. Empyrean Piljade's gaze flicked, and he opened his mouth and said, "Now that it has come to this, we already don't have a way out. Order all medicine shops to lower the prices of medicinal pills by half. If it really doesn't work, then drop it to 40%, 30%. Since we can't beat them in terms of quality, we'll use price to force them into a corner. Can such a colossal southern border alliance be defeated by a mere one person? Then wouldn't we all become laughingstocks?" Hearing Empyrean Piljade's words, the other people's minds quivered. Losing a little was much better than medicinal pills rotting in the warehouse. The Southern Border Alliance used too much strength this time. The one-off medicinal pills refinement was roughly enough for the various major factions to sell for as long as 10 years. But this kind of method was a typical example of harming others without benefits. It was too shameless. It was just that reaching this point, these heavyweights would not care about whether it was shameless or not. Therefore, a drawn-out fierce battle unfolded between the Southern Border Alliance and Myriad Treasure Tower. The Myriad Treasure Tower's medicinal pills were indeed unparalleled under the heavens, refres. H.I. plus in the understanding of all martial artists. As soon as the more than 10 kinds of medicinal pills were rolled out, it immediately swept through the entire southern border, with sky-high praises. In contrast, the Southern Border Alliance's medicinal pills were too lousy. However, one could not help that they were shameless. If the Myriad Treasure Tower was selling their medicinal pills for 100,000 high-grade divine essence stones, then the Southern Border Alliance only sold theirs for 50 or even 30,000 high-grade divine essence stones. This was still very attractive to some bottom-level martial artists. For some time, both parties were stalemated there. This seesaw battle lasted until the 5th year. Finally, the balance was broken by a series of news. Firstly, Empyrean Chaoyuan came out of seclusion and announced to join the Myriad Treasure Tower's camp. The second news, the Beitang ancient family and 7 great ancient families that were reclusive similarly announced to join the Myriad Treasure Tower's camp. Although Empyrean Chaoyuan was an itinerant cultivator, the forces under his command still could not be underestimated. Exiting seclusion this time, he broke through to the half-step ancestor realm. This kind of strength was an apex existence even when placed in the entire southern border. No one dared to overlook him, and the addition of the Beitang and other ancient families gave the Southern Border Alliance the most lethal blow. The 7 great ancient families, each family was an ancient family at the MT-Tai level of the southern border's alchemy world. Their strength even did not lose to the 7 great peak holy lands. With their support, the Myriad Treasure Tower's strength immediately soared by a great deal. To the Myriad Treasure Tower, the most important was the problem of resources. After all, it was hard for 2 fists to fight 4 hands. But although these reclusive ancient families were obscure, they had tremendous influence in terms of resources. With this kind of confidence, the Myriad Treasure Tower was not afraid of fighting a protracted war at all. You lower your price. I want to see until when you can do so. When it reached the 8th year, the Southern Border Alliance finally started collapsing. Firstly, a batch of medium and small factions could not bear the stalling and started going out of business one after another. The resources grasped in their hands were far too lacking compared to those peak holy lands. Right on the heels of that, some Grandmasters factions also gradually started going bankrupt. Later on, even a major force like the Cloud Pill establishment also started to not be able to hold on anymore. In the 9th year, Cloud Pill Great Imperial Capital's City Lord Manor was overcast with dark clouds. Fatigue and helplessness were written all over the faces of all of the heavyweights. Brother Pilljade, we can't continue like this. Carrying on like this, the entire southern border will become the Myriad Treasure Tower's territory. Empyrean Remote Knight said with a mournful look, "Yeah, this war is a bottomless hole. If we keep dragging on, the resources that we ACCU mule-lacked over a long time will all be gone." Another Empyrean was practically crying. Chapter 2060, Lowering Head. Chapter 2060, Lowering Head among the Empyrean powerhouses present, which one did not have abundant net worth. In these hundreds of thousands of years, the Southern Border Alliance monopolized more than 70% of the entire southern border's medicinal pills market. The wealth ACCU mule-lacked was incomparably abundant. It was just that no matter how abundant, they also could not feed into a bottomless hole. Moreover, although their business was huge, the majority of what they gained had to be contributed to Heavenly Emperor Bodamandas. Without the protection of Heavenly Emperors, they were nothing. Just like the Myriad Treasure Tower, it was precisely because their back was resting against Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure that Flutterfeather had this confidence to make a clean break from the Southern Border Alliance. Otherwise, why would these people fight what trade war with Empyrean Flutterfeather? They would have directly called up a bunch of Empyrean powerhouses and annihilated the Myriad Treasure Tower. Over 9 years, these people felt deeply fatigued. Fighting a war that could never be one had no meaning whatsoever, especially that Empyrean Chaoyuan and the 7 great reclusive ancient families making a move dealt an even more lethal blow to them. Empyrean Pilljade's expression flickered incessantly, and he gnashed his teeth in hatred and said, "Really, D.M., and it all to H.E.L.L. I didn't expect that they actually made the 7 great reclusive families come into being unknowingly, truly off by one move." Empyrean Blazing Sun sighed and said, "The chips in their hands are too strong. Even for the 7 great reclusive ancient families, it's also impossible to not be moved when they see these medicinal pills. After all, that represents strength. The power of medicinal pills was too strong. It could even create a great ancient family within a short few thousand years. Just like Heavenly Eagle Imperial City, celestial deities were already everywhere within a short few hundred years, just based on Yi Yuan alone. Recalling when Yi Yuan just entered Heavenly Eagle back then, their celestial deity realm powerhouses were merely just 2 people. This was the power of medicinal pills. The Myriad Treasure Tower bringing out so many epic-making medicinal pills in one go, how could reclusive ancient families possibly not be moved? Sigh, now that it has come to this, saying any more is useless. In my view, we'd better lower our heads to the Myriad Treasure Tower." Empyrean Windrider let out a sigh and said he and Empyrean Lumen were the best of friends. Back then, Empyrean Lumen urged him to not get involved in this messy situation. But in front of tremendous profits, Empyrean Windrider still failed to resist in the end. Of course, more importantly was that he completely did not believe that a puny little Yi Yuan could make the entire southern border change skies. But now, reality gave him a merciless slap. The southern border's sky really changed. With this war, the Southern Border Alliance suffered a great loss in vitality. In the future, they could only look up to the Myriad Treasure Tower for direction. Empyrean Windrider's words, I see, get everyone's nerves all at once. Lower heads. These 2 words were something that they had always had on the tip of their tongues, but did not dare to say out to. Which of those present were not important figures that made the southern border tremble when they stomped their feet, saying, lowering their heads, this sort of phrase, out of their mouths represented humiliation. In reality, how could they not tell that this war was hopeless long ago? What made them hold on until now was face, killing 1,000 of the enemy, losing 800 of your own forces. They would rather cause mutual destruction to both sides with the myriad treasure tower than be willing to lower their heads. But reaching today, they still had to lower their heads in the end. No way. Our Southern Border Alliance unified the Southern Border's alchemy world, but now we have to lower our heads to the myriad treasure tower. In the future, who will still think highly of our Southern Border Alliance? Empyrean Proud Cloud was the first one to jump out to object. Of course, he said it with a strong sense of righteousness, but everyone knew what he was plotting. It was just that the words he said were also that nerve which everyone felt the most pain. Everyone was silent and did not speak. The muscles on Empyrean Piljade's face twitched. After remaining silent for a long time, he finally slowly closed his eyes and said, Proud Cloud, this matter was caused by you, so you go to the Myriad Treasure Tower and lower your head to acknowledge fault. In addition, younger brother Windrider, the negotiations with the Myriad Treasure Tower, the full authority will be handed to you. Remember, it's us admitting defeat to the Myriad Treasure Tower and not admitting defeat to Yi Yuan. When Empyrean Proud Cloud heard that, his face immediately turned ashen, a sense of disgrace instantly welling up in his heart. This was Empyrean Piljade's action of sacrificing the knights in order to save the queen. Empyrean Proud Cloud was unwilling, but he had no choice. Breaking away from the Southern Border Alliance, Yi Yuan had this confidence, but Proud Cloud did not. Once he broke away from the Southern Border Alliance, his outcome would be being swallowed by everyone present until not even dregs remained. In the 10th year of the fierce fighting, the Southern Border Alliance finally lowered their proud heads and conceded defeat to the Myriad Treasure Tower. On this day, Empyrean Windrider brought a group of Empyrean powerhouses and came to True's gold great imperial capital to negotiate with Empyrean Flutterfeather. But Empyrean Flutterfeather hung them out to dry for as long as a month. In a pavilion halfway up Cloud Dream Mountain, several figures were currently drinking and chatting away merrily. A drunkard old man lauded with praises unceasingly. Fine wine, truly fine wine. Little friend, ye is well deserving of the tea of Grandmaster. Drinking this dreamlike wine is really like being wrapped in a dream. Yi Yuan smiled and said, If Brother Beitang likes it, I'll order people to bring a few vats over later. But this alcohol isn't easy to brew. This ye can't take much out either. The old man's eyes lit up when he heard that and said with joy, Is this for real? Yi Yuan smiled and said, Could this ye still bluff Brother Beitang? The old man laughed loudly and said, Then this Empyrean won't be courteous with you. This old man was precisely Beitang ancient family's alchemy master, Beitang Li, whose alchemy strength virtually reaching the grand completion Dao realm. It was just that the Beitang family tended to be low profile, so it was not known by outsiders. When the others saw the situation, they also asked for the dreamlike wine from Yi Yuan one after another. Yi Yuan naturally satisfied them one by one. The dreamlike wine indeed had a superb taste. Even people who did not like to drink alcohol also loved it so much that they could not bear to part with it. The 7 great ancient families rendered great assistance to the Myriad Treasure Tower this time. Yi Yuan naturally did not stint to give some small gifts as reciprocatory gifts. Empyrean Flutterfeather also felt vicissitudes of emotion at one side. Even before starting the war, he also never thought that only using 10 years, the Myriad Treasure Tower made the Southern Border Alliance bow their heads in submission like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. His initial plan was for the Myriad Treasure Tower to be able to gain a firm foothold under the pincer attack of the Southern Border Alliance. This was already his highest estimated result. Who knew that the pill formulas Yi Yuan took out directly swept throughout the entire southern border, and the formulas even forced out the 7 great ancient families that had always been reclusive. These 7 great ancient families were not the Myriad Treasure Tower going to beg them one by one, but them taking the initiative to come and implore. The attraction of these pill formulas was seriously too great. Back then, when these 7 great ancient families found the Myriad Treasure Tower, Empyrean Flutterfeather said that these pill formulas were Yi Yuan's. They refused to believe no matter what and thought that the Myriad Treasure Tower was Sherry's. Plussing their own old broomstick. Later, Beitang and the rest were unconvinced and challenged Yi Yuan, and were wrecked by Yi Yuan until they returned in great defeat. Only then did they believe that the pill formulas were Yi Yuan's. However, this was also making friends after a fight. Right now, Beitang and the 7 great ancient families had the greatest esteem for Yi Yuan and already were friends in spite of the differences in age. With the allying of the 7 great ancient families, the Southern Border Alliance became too weak to stand up to combat. 1. Tie-in. After 3 rounds of drinking, Beitang Li chuckled and said to Yi Yuan, "Younger brother Yi, are friends. I plus P is friends. I plus P, business is business. You look, the Southern Border Alliance has already lowered their heads. Shouldn't our agreement take effect too?" Yi Yuan laughed and said, "Elder brother Beitang is really anxious. Would this Yi be a stingy person? The pill formulas will be presented right away." Finished talking, Yi Yuan took out a bunch of jade slips and distributed them respectively to the 7 great ancient families' representatives. Chapter 2061. Admitting defeat. One should have the manner of admitting defeat. Chapter 2061. Admitting defeat. One should have the manner of admitting defeat. It was naturally impossible for the 7 great ancient families to help the Myriad Treasure Tower for no reason. These ancient families did not emerge and did not take part in the conflicts of the world. Since they took part, it was naturally that something that moved them had appeared. And this thing was the pill formulas in Yi Yuan's hands. Prior to this, Yi Yuan already reached a consensus with the 7 great families. As long as the Southern Border Alliance lowered their heads, he was willing to distribute the pill formulas to the 7 great ancient families. Each ancient family would get 2 pill formulas. Of course, Yi Yuan would not treat Empyrean Chao Yuan shabbily either. Beitang carefully put away the pill formula, an appearance of having obtained a priceless treasure. The pill formulas of these conventional medicinal pills could maintain a major family's long-term prosperity. How could he, Beitang Li, not be careful? Little friend Yi is indeed trustworthy. Before I made this trip, Family Head already said that in the future, you're my Beitang family's retainer elder. You keep this token well. If anyone dares to be disrespectful to little friend Yi, that's becoming enemies with my Beitang ancient family. Done talking, Beitang Li did not care about whether Yi Yuan agreed, or not either, directly shoving the token into Yi Yuan's hand. The other ancient family's representatives all secretly regretted endlessly. The Beitang family was a little too shrewd. While they could also invite Yi Yuan to be a retainer elder, how could it be as valuable as the Beitang family who shoved the token first? But they still made promises, saying that the token will be delivered very soon. Yi Yuan was helpless and could only accept one by one. Yi Yuan was not something who did not appreciate favors. Since people showed a warm attitude, he would not snub them. Furthermore, these reclusive families' strength was not overt. According to what Empyrean Flutterfeather said, each one of these families was very powerful. Since that was the case, wouldn't Yi Yuan finding a few reliable allies for Heavenly Eagle be a good thing? Obtaining the pill formulas and getting the dreamlike wine, Beitang, and the rest were all bursting with joy, bidding farewell, and leaving one after another. Only at this time did Empyrean Flutterfeather's eyes glimmer, as he said, "Is it really fine for you to hand the pill formulas to them? You should know the value of these pill formulas." But Yi Yuan smiled and said, "Right now, the Myriad Treasure Tower and Southern Border Alliance are at war, so everyone won't think of anything. But as time SES, the pill formulas being in the hands of your Myriad Treasure Tower alone, then the Myriad Treasure Tower will become the target of public censure. When the time comes, can you guarantee that Pill Jade, they all won't cause problems? Now, there are even the 7 great ancient families backing up the Myriad Treasure Tower. No matter how much they covet the pill formulas, they also wouldn't easily dare to make a move." Empyrean Flutterfeather's pupils constricted, looking at Yi Yuan with amazement. Immediately, the amazement became a bitter smile, and he said, "It's still you who is far-sighted. Even I had both eyes clouded by this enormous profit. Although the Myriad Treasure Tower was strong, it was impossible to unify the southern border just based on a Myriad Treasure Tower. It was unless Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure could overpower all of the Heavenly Emperor powerhouses and crown himself king. Except, while Heavenly Emperor Myriad Treasure was wrong, he clearly could not accomplish this. Since he could not do it, then these pill formulas could not be pocketed without sharing. At that time, forces from various places would come and vie. In front of enormous profits, perhaps it would even draw out Heavenly Emperor powerhouses. Then there would be no way to clean up the mess. Since the pill formulas must be handed out, then building good relations with the few major reclusive ancient families was better than giving it to others. Now, Empyrean Flutterfeather was rejoicing greatly for having made such a young friend back then. Rather, it was Empyrean Pilljade, who clearly had Yun-E this ace in the hole, but did not know how to cherish and made things difficult for Yi Yuan at every turn. Now, he probably regretted it until his intestines were green, right? At City Lord Manor, L.U.S., True's Gold Great Imperial Capital, Empyrean Flutterfeather sat up straight, his aura astonies. H.I. plussing people around him. Empyrean Windrider and Empyrean Proudcloud had ugly expressions. The Myriad Treasure Tower's heirs were too big. No matter what, they came representing the Southern Border Alliance. Empyrean Flutterfeather actually hung them out to dry for more than a month. Ho-hoo, fellow Taoists, right now, the Myriad Treasure Tower stalls are too many. This Empyrean is busy every day and has neglected everyone. I am truly sorry about it. Flutterfeather apologized verbally, but his face did not have any apology at all. I did it on purpose. Do you have a temper? If you have a temper, push it back down for me. Sure enough, Empyrean Windrider smiled awkwardly and said, Yes, yes. Fellow Taoist Flutterfeather is presently the southern border's in-demand person, so you're naturally busy. It's also a should that we wait. Empyrean Flutterfeather smiled and said, Not at all, not at all. The Myriad Treasure Tower is just a small faction. How can it compare to the Southern Border Alliance's power and influence? I wonder what fellow Taoist Windrider came to L.S. True's Gold this time for? The meaning of the words was that you bullied people by taking advantage of your power, and you bullied the few with an advantage in numbers. Now, weren't you still annihilated by me? Flutterfeather's words carried some delight in his heart. Honestly speaking, when he supported Yi Yuan ardently back then, his heart was actually racing too. At that time, how C-O-C-K-Y and insufferably arrogant were Empyrean Pilljade they all. Yi Yuan was merely asking for an explanation. In the end, he was attacked collectively by Empyrean Pilljade's rallying and even threatened him, making him not stand on Yi Yuan's side. Now, Yi Yuan did not let him down, beating the Southern Border Alliance into a sorry plight by himself. Empyrean Windrider's expression turned stiff, feeling stifled in his heart. What did I come for? Could it be that you did not know? There was no point in slapping people's faces like that, right? Ha ha, younger brother Flutterfeather. This old man came this time representing the Southern Border Alliance to request for the Myriad Treasure Tower to lift your hand high in mercy. You look, our two parties fighting here, and they're disregarding losing our harmonious relations. I plus P, how awful would it be to end up in a situation of mutual destruction? Moreover, younger brother Flutterfeather is also a member of the Southern Border Alliance. Why is there a need to harm the harmony among your own family? Empyrean Windrider was helpless and could only say with a fawning smile. But when Empyrean Flutterfeather heard this, he sneered coldly in his heart. This Southern Border Alliance really wanted face no matter what. Mutual destruction? Fellow Taoist, Windrider is gilding your own face too much. My Myriad Treasure Tower already occupies half of the southern border, but you're telling me mutual destruction now? Moreover, this Empyrean has long already withdrawn from the Southern Border Alliance. You say my own family. Haha, this Empyrean am not worthy to be part of you all. Flutterfeather said with a cold smile, but Windrider took no heed of it, and said with a smile, I understand younger brother Flutterfeather's meaning, but my Southern Border Alliance is after all the Southern Border's #1 great faction. Even if the Myriad Treasure Tower holds the advantage presently, the Myriad Treasure Tower can't swallow this Civ land of Southern Border. Empyrean Flutterfeather's gaze turned cold, and he said with a sneer, since that's the case, this Empyrean doesn't feel a need to carry on negotiating anymore too. Whatever methods the Southern Border Alliance still has, feel free to use them. My Myriad Treasure Tower will accompany you to the end. Fellow Taoist, Windrider, please return. This bunch of guys actually still dared to be so domineering when they came to concede defeat. Did they really take themselves to be the victor? His Myriad Treasure Tower could not swallow the Southern Border, but was the Southern Border Alliance a monolithic block? Really carry on fighting, there would ultimately be someone who could not hold out. At that time, the Southern Border Alliance would definitely break up. Empyrean Pilljade definitely saw this too. That was why he sent Empyrean Windrider here. How could he, Empyrean Flutterfeather, not understand the situation? Moreover, the Myriad Treasure Tower currently had the 7 great ancient families supporting. So what was he, Flutterfeather, afraid of? Empyrean Windrider's face changed, only then coming to a realization that the present Flutterfeather was already not the Flutterfeather back then. Ever since bringing Empyrean Pilljade to his knees in the Cloud Pill Summit, the present Empyrean Flutterfeather was already a fierce and ambitious figure. Younger brother Flutterfeather, please calm your anger. This Empyrean coming this time, it's actually to represent the Southern Border Alliance to admit defeat. Brother Pilljade has given the verbal order that as long as younger brother Flutterfeather is willing, you can return to the Southern Border Alliance at any time. You are still the Alliance chief. Empyrean Windrider finally lowered his high head. He was the master of an exalted holy land, so when had he lowered his head to someone before? But today, he had no choice but to lower his head, saying, admit defeat. These 2 words out of his mouth was as heavy as 30,000 caddies. When Empyrean Flutterfeather heard that, he just chuckled and said, admitting defeat. One should have the manner of admitting defeat. It's just whether or not we reconcile, Flutterfeather can't make the decision. If you guys want to bury the hatchet, there must be another person who nods his head. Chapter 2062. Overwhelmingly defeating the Southern Border with his power alone. Chapter 2062. Overwhelmingly defeating the Southern Border with his power alone. standing at the right side and looking at Yi Yuan, who had a smile that was not a smile. Empyrean Proudcloud felt uncomfortable, as if having eaten a fly. After twists and turns, he finally still stood in front of Yi Yuan and was forced to admit his fault. If he had long known it would be like this, might as well directly take a step back at that time. It would also not be to an extent of like this right now. Grandmaster Yi, Proudcloud is here to apologize to you. Empyrean Proudcloud said, with a solemn face. Yi Yuan pursed his mouth and said, coolly, do you feel that I'll accept this kind of insincere apology? If you can't swallow your pride, why not, Brother Proudcloud, go back right away and prepare for another battle? Empyrean Proudcloud's face alternated between green and white. So many people were looking at them the moment, and yet he had to apologize to a true G. Oh, D. Realm Jr. in public. This was simply unprecedented humiliation. The most important thing was that he apologized, and the other party was still not satisfied. It was just that he did not see his own expression. How was that an apology? It was clearly coming to demand repayment of a debt. Empyrean Windrider also could not endure the sight of it anymore. His brows were furrowing slightly as he said, Proudcloud, if you still have no regard for what's important, this Empyrean can't protect you anymore after this. Proudcloud's face changed, and he gritted his teeth and said with a bow, Grandmaster Yi, the matter previously was all Proudcloud's fault. I hope that you raise your hand high in mercy and don't carry on fighting with the Southern Border Alliance anymore. This time, although they could still hear his unwillingness, his attitude was clearly much more sincere. Yi Yuan said coolly, forget it. Looking at your reluctant and unwilling appearance, I won't make things difficult for you. But you wouldn't be thinking of apologizing to this Yi with a single sentence, right? Proudcloud gritted his teeth and said, of course not. This Empyrean is willing to take out 20% of his territory to give to Grandmaster Yi. Yi Yuan gave him a glance and said smilingly, if you had long known what would happen today, why behave like that back then? Proudcloud was virtually about to explode, but right at this time, he heard Yi Yuan said faintly, however, that was the price for 10 years ago. Back then, you invaded and occupied my territory. So this you wants an explanation. If you took out 20% of your territory, everything can naturally be discussed. But you all bullied people by taking advantage of your power and forced this Yi and Brother Flutterfeather out of the Southern Border Alliance. At this present time, you want to dismiss us with a mere 20% of your territory? Proudcloud's territory was not considered big among all of the factions in the first place. 20% of the territory was sufficient to make his flesh hurt for a long time. But hearing Yi Yuan's words, he knew that this matter was likely unable to be settled anymore. I wonder just what Grandmaster Yi wants before you're willing to drop matters. Empyrean Proudcloud closed his two eyes and got ready to risk it all. Yi Yuan said coolly, back then, those factions that took part in fighting for the territory all took out 40% of their territory, while you, Empyrean Proudcloud, took out 50% of your territory. If we do like in the past, this matter will be considered dropped. Empyrean Proudcloud's expression changed wildly, and he said furiously, you're bullying people too far. Yi Yuan's two eyes narrowed, his aura suddenly changing as he said in a cold voice, I'm bullying people too far? Back then, the agreement was just decided, and you all reneged on your words. SNATC hing this Ye's territory. Yet, you all still felt zero shame and wanted to settle things without even a word of apology. How can there be such a bargain in this world? Later, your Southern Border Alliance sowed discord between Brother Flutterfeather and me in order to deal with this Yi. Later, we were even forced out of the Southern Border Alliance. After that, You all invaded the Myriad Treasure Tower's territory in Ama's Civ invasion and joined forces with 100 forces to carry out a campaign against the Myriad Treasure Tower. This one event after another. This ye hasn't said anything yet. Now, when it came out of your mouth, it came out that this ye bullying people too far. Each sentence Yi Yuan said, he took a step forward, the momentum Estonies. Plussing. Someone was powerful, as Empyrean Proud Cloud was actually repeatedly forced back by Yi Yuan. When Windrider and the rest saw, they could not help feeling dumbfounded in their hearts. A mere Truji, D-Realm actually forced back an Empyrean powerhouse. But they had to admit that Yi Yuan's Grandmaster heir was already formed, the imposing momentum on his body surmounting above all life. This aura did not lord over others, but it gave people a feeling akin to that of the mighty ocean, causing them not daring to look straight at him. Empyrean Windrider heaved a slight sigh. He knew that Proud Cloud was already thoroughly suppressed by Yi Yuan and had no way of negotiating it all anymore. What Grandmaster Yi said is true. It's just that your demands are a little too harsh, right? Windrider spoke up. Yi Yuan gave another cold laugh and said, Brother Windrider, this is just me and Proud Cloud settling some scores. My score with Brother Pilljade and the Southern Border Alliance hasn't been calculated yet. Don't put things nicely. This Yi is standing here with the bearing of a victor today. If this Yi was defeated, your methods will likely be 10 times fiercer than this Yi, right? Empyrean Windrider's face changed, but he still said with an awkward smile, how can this be possible? Yi Yuan said coolly, whether it's possible or not, you and I have a score in our hearts. So saying any more is pointless. I'm only asking you, can my demand be satisfied or not? Empyrean Windrider nodded and said, Okay, the Alliance agrees on their behalf. Whatever conditions Grandmaster Yi still has, why don't you say it out together? Yi Yuan waved his hand and said, The rest can still be discussed. The Southern Border Alliance will compensate Heavenly Eagle 10 million high-grade divine essence stones. In addition, I'll give a list later. You guys prepare the natural treasures on it, and my hurdle will be considered cleared. However, don't you all think about this being settled all in one go. Only after the divine essence stones and the natural treasures on the list have fully arrived that Brother Flutterfeather will start his negotiations with you all. Empyrean Windrider's face alternated between green and white. He felt like he was negotiating with an old monster, and not 1,000 over years old young man. This guy advanced gradually and entrenched himself at every step, not giving you any chance to play tricks at all. He just planned to drag it out when Yi Yuan directly throttled him. 10 million high-grade divine essence stones were nothing. It was just a single hair from 9 oxen to a colossal giant like the Southern Border Alliance. But the list that Yi Yuan pulled out would definitely far exceed 10 million high-grade divine essence stones. Furthermore, these spirit medicines must be very rare. Even if the Myriad Treasure Tower took action, they might not be able to collect them fully. This kid was really a bloodsucker, but Empyrean Windrider was also clear that Yi Yuan here was merely the small end. The real largest share was still at Empyrean Flutterfeather there. The negotiation with the Myriad Treasure Tower was the major thing that had important consequences. Empyrean Windrider mused for a while and said, All right, this Empyrean will agree on behalf of the Alliance. After Empyrean Windrider reached the Myriad Treasure Tower, the news of the Southern Border Alliance suffering a miserable defeat and lowering their heads swept throughout the entire southern border like the wind. Not only did it cause a great sensation in the alchemy world, it similarly caused a stir in the entire martial arts world. Those who were well informed all understood that the Southern Border Alliance did not lose to the Myriad Treasure Tower, but lost to a genius alchemist called Yi Yuan, overwhelmingly defeating the Southern Border with his power alone. Yi Yuan's great fame instantly spread throughout the entire Southern Border. At the Luo family residence, the Luo family's ancestor had an appearance of bitter resentment and being let down. He pointed at Luo Tianqi's nose and scolded him severely. "You fool! An utter fool! If you enter Grandmaster Ye's tutelage and achieve the grand completion Dao realm in the future, you'll be a great power of this southern border." Oh, decent opportunity like this. You actually ran in front of Grandmaster Yi to flaunt your prowess? Was your head kicked by a donkey? Luo Tianqi did not give in. He said, "Ancestor, how could Tianqi have known back then that he assaulted fish could also gain a new lease on life? Moreover, our Luo family is backed by a heavenly emperor. So why is there a need to lick his smelly feet?" The Luo family's ancestor was angered until he blew smoke from all 7 orifices, and he roared furiously, "Scram! Get lost for me! Starting from today, you'll be confined for 500 years and not permitted to take one step out of your room." Chapter 2063. 3 Bullied Wives. Chapter 2063. 3 bullied wives. The one being remorseful and angry was not just the Luo family's ancestor. Those geniuses who had the chance to enter Yi Yuan's tutelage were currently all thumping their chests and stomping their feet at home, regretting endlessly. Yi Yuan's talent was too great. Furthermore, his ability in teaching disciples was similarly powerful. A figure able to take out more than 10 kinds of pill formulas casually and propel the transformation of the Southern Border's medicinal pills. How weak could he be in the future? Who could guarantee that several tens of thousands of years later, the Southern Border would not produce another medicine ancestor-level character? Even if Yi Yuan could not become a medicine ancestor, that was also absolutely a great grandmaster as weighty as Mount Tai. Being able to become his disciple, that was a tremendous lucky chance. Old man Pilljade is blind, but his great-grandson could see what others could not. Yun Yi, that kid, under Grandmaster Ye's tutelage, he will definitely be an earth-shaking great character in the future. Perhaps in the future, old man Pilljade wouldn't even be fit to carry shoes for this great-grandson of his. This boy is too monstrous. I'm afraid that even the medicine ancestor back then also did not have this kind of terrifying strength, right? He overturned the entire Southern Border Alliance with his power alone. This kind of heaven-shocking action. He can bear the Tli of little medicine ancestor. Already no idea since when this Tli of little medicine ancestor was crowned on Yi Yuan's head. The Southern Border's various places were virtually all discussing Yi Yuan. Yi Yuan had such dazzling strength, bystanders would naturally compare with the #1 alchemy Dao person. In the end, they discovered that even when the medicine ancestor was returned to his youth, it would likely be hard to reach Yi Yuan's current height too. One had to know Yi Yuan overpowered all of the 7-star alchemy DS in the Cloud Pills Summit. Later, he even triggered the Sea of Law and entered Ancestor Realm. At a young age, he was already a Mount Tai level figure of the alchemy world. This kind of achievement, using accomplishment that Serpa S. said ancient and modern times to describe, was not the least bit overboard. Being carried along by the heaven-shocking momentum, a puny little heavenly eagle imperial city, shockingly, already became the Southern Border's 8th great peak, Holy Land. Although this did not get the Southern Border Alliance's acknowledgement, this was already an established fact in the hearts of numerous alchemists. More and more alchemists poured into Heavenly Eagle Imperial City. This small city already appeared too overcrowded. Yi Yuan opening his mouth and exorbitantly demanding 10 million high-grade divine essence stones from the Southern Border Alliance were done in order to expand the city. 10 million high-grade divine essence stones. Even at great imperial capital this level, it was also a massive resource. For close to 10 years, Yi Yuan also ACCU mulatto a sum of tremendous wealth from cooperating with the Myriad Treasure Tower. It was sufficient to use to expand the city. The Myriad Treasure Tower and Southern Border Alliance's negotiations were currently carrying out a seesaw game. Actually, Yi Yuan and Flutterfeather were both clear in their hearts that just based on a Myriad Treasure Tower, even if adding in the 7 great reclusive ancient families, they also could not devour the southern border, this piece of fatty meat. This stall ultimately still had to be branched out. Otherwise, what would they still sit down and discuss? With the Myriad Treasure Tower's strength, presently, eliminating the Southern Border Alliance was simply as easy as counting numbers, but it was not easy to annex the territories. But even if they could not devour it, the Myriad Treasure Tower also had to fight for the maximization of benefits. The Myriad Treasure Tower ultimately still had to join the Southern Border Alliance. It was just that the division of profits naturally could not be like in the past anymore. The suggestion that Yi Yuan gave Flutterfeather was not to ask for too much of their territories, but the pill formulas must be grasped in their hands. The Southern Border Alliance would definitely covet the pill formulas. The Myriad Treasure Tower's goal was to turn the Southern Border Alliance into their sellers. The Myriad Treasure Tower provided the medicinal pills, while the Southern Border Alliance only had the selling rights. At that time, the profits would be divided again. This way, the Myriad Treasure Tower's position of Alliance Chief would be as solid as a metal bucket. As for medicinal pills, presently with the support of the 7 great reclusive ancient families, they could be refined without ceasing. These alchemy ancient families normally stayed hidden and did not emerge. But that was just relatively speaking. For ancient family disciples to want to cultivate, it naturally could not do without large sums of divine essence stones. This kind of remote controlling method was these reclusive ancient families' favorite method of earning money. Of course, this was something that Empyrean Flutterfeather needed to worry about. Yi Yuan could not be bothered to go and care. Regardless of what the final outcome was, he just needed to sit and wait to get his share of the money. On this day, Yi Yuan was currently in his manor cultivating when suddenly someone came to report that 5 firmament great imperial capitals Empyrean Lu Yen came to request an audience. Yi Yuan was slightly taken aback and immediately understood something, the corners of his mouth revealing a trace of a smile. At the City Lord Manor, Yi Yuan sat high up at the court, while the exalted Empyrean Lu Yen could only stand with his hands by the side below. Looking at the Yi Yuan who was akin to being high in the clouds, Lu Yen felt all sorts of emotions jumbled up in his heart. How could he have thought that within the imperial cities that he governed, there would actually be a huge dragon that soared to the sky? Although Lu Yen was not someone involved in alchemy, a grand event like the Cloud Pill Summit, how could he not know about what happened with his status as an Empyrean? When one soul-stirring news after another came over, Lu Yen finally understood just what kind of existence he offended. Back then, when Flutterfeather gave Yi Yuan the Grandmaster token, beyond his shock, Lu Yen turned his nose up at it more. A puny little true G. Oh, D-Realm holding a Grandmaster token, going to the Cloud Pill Summit to make a spectacle of himself? At this age, he should compete with 6-star geniuses honestly and sincerely. Be a Grandmaster? Was he worthy? But when one news after another came over, only then did Lu Yen know that Yi Yuan was really worthy of being one. But later, with the Myriad Treasure Tower and Southern Border Alliance battling against one another, Lu Yen saw hope again, and even expelled the Myriad Treasure Tower, drawing the Cloud Pill establishment, these major factions in. In his view, the myriad treasure tower would surely be defeated without a doubt. No matter how strong a faction was, how could they possibly be stronger than the entire southern border? The southern border had a boundless expanse of land. Just the great imperial capitals had thousands to tens of thousands. How could a mere myriad treasure tower be the Southern Border Alliance's match? But he never dreamed that Yi Yuan actually fought until the southern border was utterly destroyed with his power alone, ultimately sending people over to beg for peace. Ever since he sent Lu Zi over to capture Yi Yuan, he had never had anything go right for him before. Toward a mere imperial city, Empyreans could be said to hold power over its life and death. Yet, in this heavenly eagle, Yi Yuan gave him one surprise after another. The five-firmament great imperial capital was the myriad treasure tower's traditional faction. Since they came to beg for peace, the Cloud Pill establishment, these factions naturally had to withdraw. With this, Empyrean Lu Yan was virtually about to cry. He thickened his face to go and find the myriad treasure tower, hoping for the myriad treasure tower to rejoin the five-firmament great imperial capital. But they did not buy it at all. Empyrean Flutterfeather gave the instructions concerning the five-firmament great imperial capital's affairs that they would not get involved at all. Wanting to have the myriad treasure tower rejoin the five-firmament great imperial capital, it must get Yi Yuan's approval. There was no choice. Under Empyrean Lu Yan's helplessness, he could only humble himself and come and beg Yi Yuan. Normally, forget about that. Without the myriad treasure tower, he could find other forces to refine medicinal pills. But the problem was that Yi Yuan poisoned several thousand true D realms to death previously. The five-firmament great imperial capital virtually had no power to fight. At this juncture, without the support of powerful medicinal pills, he would have to be a lone general without an army for D knows how long. The current Empyrean Lu Yan brought along Deng Yunzai and Dai Chuanhao just like three bullied wives, on tenterhooks. Empyrean powerhouse. That was the pinnacle-most existence in this secular world. How high-spirited were they? They had never thought that they would actually have this kind of emotion in front of a true D Realm Jr. One day, Lu Yan gave a deep bow toward Yi Yuan and said, "Five-firmament great imperial capitals, Lu Yan pays respect to Grandmaster Yi." Chapter 2064. Glory to live in Heavenly Eagle. Chapter 2064. Glory to live in Heavenly Eagle. This young man in front of him was the fellow who killed his precious daughter and slaughtered thousands of his subordinates. Now, he actually had to show such solemn respects to the other party. He had no way to describe how uncomfortable this was. But he also understood that with Yi Yuan's present status in the southern border, even if 10 Lu Yans added up, he would also be inferior. If not being backed by a heavenly emperor, Yi Yuan could plow five-firmament great imperial capital 10 times over by randomly calling a few Empyreans. Think about what kind of people Yi Yuan was associating with now. Empyrean Flutterfeather, Empyrean Chaoyuan, and it was said that there were also the 7 great reclusive alchemy ancient families' superpower houses. Any one of these people was not in existence that he could provoke, although the present Yi Yuan was still true D realm, he already made him unable to look up to him. Empyrean Lu Yan coming to find this Yi, it really surprises me greatly. Yi Yuan said with a smile that was not a smile. Lu Yan had an awkward look as he said, the matters in the past, was all this Lu who had eyes but couldn't discern Grandmaster Ye's true face, resulting in affronting Grandmaster. I hope that Grandmaster Yi is magnanimous and don't haggle over it with us. Being under people's roof, there was no choice but to lower one's head. At this time, how could an Empyrean's face still be wanted? Moreover, Even the Southern Border Alliance's big shots all lowered their heads and admitted their fault to Yi Yuan. What's wrong with him? A mere second firmament Empyrean, lowering his head. Yi Yuan laughed in spite of himself and said, "If apologies have any use, then what do we still cultivate for?" Lu Yen, back then you commanded an army of 100,000 martial artists and several thousand true Ji. Oh, deep powerhouses. If this Ye's strength was lacking, this heavenly eagle would likely have not even dogs or fowls left anymore. You want to let matters go with this one light and fleeting sentence. Moreover, these few years, you all drove out the myriad treasure tower. It's clearly remnant hatred that's outstanding. Why do you all feel that this Yi should help you guys? Yi Yuan was not a narrow-minded person. However, the five firmament great imperial capital had an appearance of showing disdain on everyone and everything, starting with Lu Zi deciding people's life and death at the drop of a hat, making him extremely unhappy. Later, Lu Yen even dispatched an army of 100,000, claiming that he was going to slaughter the city, if not for Yi Yuan killing several thousand true Ji. Oh, DS with ruthless means, how could there still be any heavenly eagle imperial city currently? Lu Yen, three people had awkward faces. At that time, both parties were akin to fire and water. Even now, they still had a blood feud. It was just that circuit, stances were stronger than people. Lu Yen, three people had to implore Yi Yuan, and had no choice but to lower their heads. What Grandmaster Yi says is true. Back then, our hearts were blinded. That's why we be like that. In order to express our apology, we brought some gifts over. We hope that Grandmaster Yi will kindly accept them. Lu Yen said. Yi Yuan laughed in spite of himself when he heard this. He then said, "Lu Yen, it's not that this Yi is looking down on you, but can your five firmament great imperial capital take out something that moves this Yi?" When the three people heard that, they could not help choking. That was true. With Heavenly Eagle's present power and influence, they would be controlling 10% of the southern border's medicinal pills market very soon. How is Stony's? Plussing was this wealth? A mere five firmament great imperial capital. Even if these three great Empyreans took out all of their sets, Yi Yuan would completely turn his nose up at it too. The three people exchanged glances and were like eggplants. Bifrost, actually at a loss on what to do for a moment. Although they were of blee Empyrean bodies, it was too insignificant in front of the present Yi Yuan. Just as the three people lost all hope, Yi Yuan suddenly spoke up. "You all coming to find me, it's simply to get the myriad treasure tower to rejoin the five firmament great imperial capital. I'll give you all a chance, but whether you do it or not is up to you guys." The moment the three people heard, they could not help being overjoyed. But very soon, Lu Yan's face fell again. He knew that the thing Yi Yuan was making them do definitely would not be that easy. "Brother Lu Yan, what are you still in a daze for? Grandmaster, Yi already said to give us a chance." Deng Yunzai urged. He already could not endure the present days anymore. The Deng family had already run out of resources for as long as several years. If there were still no medicinal pills provided, all of their Deng family members' cultivation would probably get delayed. So the moment he heard Yi Yuan's words, Deng Yunzai agreed without thinking. Lu Yan's face changed several times. Yi Yuan did not urge either, just quietly waiting for a response. Suddenly, Lu Yan's face turned intent, seemingly making up his mind, and said in a solemn voice, "Whatever orders Grandmaster Yi has, this Lu will definitely do it." Yi Yuan said coolly, "Good, I want the three of you to extend a formal apology in front of everyone in the city. Also, swear a solemn oath in front of everybody to never invade Heavenly Eagle in this lifetime. Don't use this sort of expression to look at me. It's not this ye intentionally making things difficult for you all, but that you owe them an apology. When the three people heard that, their faces changed rapidly. Inside this tiny little city lord manor, the three of them lowering their heads to Yi Yuan. Although this was humiliating, it was actually nothing much. With Yi Yuan's present ident, one, tie in status, he could bear their apology. But making them apologize to those ants with their empyrean bodies, that was another matter altogether. With this apology, it would be known to millions. Where would their old faces go in the future? Reaching their level of realm, forfeiting their integrity was minor. Losing face was huge. Looking at the three people whose faces were flickering intermittently, Yi Yuan slowly stood up and left with his hands behind his back. You all have 3 days' time to consider. After 3 days, if you haven't replied, you all can leave on your own. Beside the three people's ears came Yi Yuan's drawn-out voice. 5 days later, at Heavenly Eagle's Pill Tower Square, countless martial artists and alchemists were gathered here. Among the people present, some people had been through that earth-shaking great battle. There were also people that joined Heavenly Eagle afterward and knew absolutely nothing about this. But very soon, they learned the whole story of that earth-shaking great battle from other people's mouths and was immediately shocked speechless. Only then did they know that Grandmaster Yi still had such a brilliant battle record, annihilating several thousand true G. DS with his power alone, creating 3 great Empyreans with alchemy, 6 great Empyreans coming to help out from all over the land, forcing a heavenly emperor to give in. This kind of battle record was truly fascinating, but they also learned at the same time why the martial artists in the city loved and respected Grandmaster Yi so much. Grandmaster Yi became furious to the extreme, not for his lover, but it was merely for a nameless kid called Jiangming. This kind of benevolent master, was he not worthy of following? Of course, many people present were very disdainful. TSK, what does this count as? Presently, Grandmaster Yi defeated the southern border with his power alone. That is a truly heaven-shocking battle. Ha ha ha! Reasonable, reasonable! Everyone burst into laughter. But today, Grandmaster Yi still made 3 great Empyreans apologize to the whole city for our sakes. The eyes of the martial artists that had experienced that battle brimmed over with hot tears. Recalling back then, it was really like a dream. At that time, these 3 great Empyreans were G, O, DS in the sky in our eyes, Cruce, H, I, plussing until all of us could not catch our breath. But now, a word from Grandmaster, ye can make them bow their heads in submission. It's glorious to live in Heavenly Eagle. Unknowingly, the horizons of Heavenly Eagle's martial artists also broadened significantly. The originally incomparably mysterious Empyreans, in their eyes, already became normal. They all understood that it was not that they got strong, but that Grandmaster Yi became powerful. This one sentence stirred up the sense of ident. One, tie of all the martial artists. Everyone raised their hands and started shouting, "Glory to live in Heavenly Eagle! Glory to live in Heavenly Eagle! Glory to live in Heavenly Eagle!" On this day, 3 great Empyreans apologized in public. The southern border was shocked. Chapter 2065. It's you all who haven't seen much of the world. Chapter 2065. It's you all who haven't seen much of the world. The void vibrated. Several young girls, fluttering with immortal chi, slowly walked out. The girl in the front was dressed in clothes whiter than snow. Although she was not a beauty, she was also quite pretty. It was just that there was an additional trace of viciousness between her brows, giving people a feeling of keeping strangers away. The few people strained their eyes and looked into the distance. A large-scale city rose up from the ground ahead, looking magnificent. Beside the white-clothed girl, one of them said, Senior apprentice sister Sun, this is the heavenly eagle imperial city, that little junior sister said. Right? I didn't expect that a mere imperial city is actually so magnificent too. Mentioning that little junior sister, a hint of disdain and mockery flashed across in her eyes. Senior apprentice sister Sun pursed her mouth and said scornfully, a mere imperial city made so luxuriously, the person managing affairs must like to do grandiose things to impress people, not making any contributions. Humph. I get angry at the mention of that wretched girl. If not for her, we also wouldn't have needed to travel across the Heavenspan mountain and run to the southern border from the northern border. The pretty junior apprentice sister smiled and said, that wretched girl feels that she has the profound, divine physique and looks down on eldest senior sister. Master's kindness toward her is as weighty as a mountain, but she doesn't think about repaying it, and even wanted us senior apprentice sisters to run here from far away to capture people. Really, and when we capture the person she's in love with, we'll have to teach him a good lesson. Senior apprentice sister Sun did not express anything and just said coolly, come on, enter the city first before talking. Figure out that kid's situation first. Otherwise, if we beat the GRAS and startle the snake, it wouldn't be good if he runs. The party of 5 followed the crowd and entered Heavenly Eagle Imperial City. Only after entering the city did the 5 people detect Heavenly Eagle's prosperity. It actually did not lose to ordinary imperial capitals. This made them very surprised. Compared to the number of martial artists here, this city was not big, but appeared too small. Senior apprentice sister Sun, is this really a little imperial city? Why do I feel like this place is even more flurries? Plusing than the average imperial capital? The pretty junior apprentice sister looked left and right and said in surprise. Senior apprentice sister Sun frowned and said, this place's medicine shops in great numbers, alchemy prevalent, looks rather like an alchemy holy land. That girl said before that her little lover is an alchemist. Looks like it matches. There's an inn ahead. Let's go over and inquire about it. The few people entered an inn and found a table next to a window and sat down. When the waiter came over, the pretty junior apprentice sister hurriedly asked, waiter, I see that your Heavenly Eagle Imperial City seems to have a lot of alchemists. The moment the waiter heard, he could not help saying with a proud look, ladies, you came from other places, right? Hoo-hoo, our Heavenly Eagle Imperial City is the southern border's #1 alchemy holy land. If you want a request for pills, then you came to the right place. The moment the few junior apprentice sisters heard this, they could not help snickering. The pretty junior apprentice sister said in Amia's, #1 in the southern border? A little imperial city also dare claim to be the southern border's #1? Your place is remote and has probably never seen before how big the world outside is, right? Her meaning was saying that Heavenly Eagle Imperial City's people had never seen much of the world. It was just that the pretty junior apprentice sisters laughing made everyone around her laugh instead. Little girl, not that we haven't seen the world. It's that you all haven't seen how big the world is. You go out and inquire, and you'll know that our Heavenly Eagle Imperial City is #1 in this southern border. I guarantee this is the truth. Ha! Even if 7-star Alchemy DS arrived at our Heavenly Eagle, they also have to bend their backs and walk. Little girl, do more homework before going out. Otherwise, you'll become a joke when you reach the place. There were kind laughters all around, but it was incomparably ear-piercing to these few people. The pretty junior apprentice sister's face turned red and was about to fly off the handle, but she heard senior apprentice sister Sun cough lightly. Senior apprentice sister Sun looked at the waiter and asked, this little brother, since your place here is an alchemy holy land, then have you heard of a young man called Yi Yuan before? As if afraid that the waiter had not heard of him before, senior apprentice Sister Sun added, heard that his age isn't old, his alchemy skills should still be sable. The moment these words came out, the whole place was silent. Extremely strange looks appeared on everyone's faces. Senior apprentice Sister Sun and everyone immediately also realized that something was wrong. Could it be that her words violated some taboo? But they did not take it to heart. A mere imperial city, even if it violated some taboo, what could they do to her? Why? Did this young lady say something wrong? Senior apprentice Sister Sun asked curiously. The waiter revealed a strange look and said, that's not it. However, if Lord Ye's alchemy skill is still sable, then other alchemists can find a piece of tofu to commit suicide with. Oh, in that case, he's very impressive. Senior apprentice Sister Sun did not take it seriously and asked coolly. She was already very convinced that the people of this imperial city developed a wildly arrogant personality because it was too out of the way. Think that they were invincible under the heavens with a few formidable alchemists in the city. Ignorance was truly terrifying. She had still heard of the southern borders alchemy world before. The most powerful ones were Empyrean Piljade, as well as the leaders of the 6 great holy lands. When was it a puny little imperial city's turn to some hegemony? The waiter smiled and said, impressive? Ho, more than just impressive. Tell you this, then. Even if 7-star alchemy DS came, they would also have to respectfully call His Excellency Grandmaster. Senior apprentice Sister Sun pursed her mouth, a disdainful look on her face. This bunch of country Mkins was truly wildly conceited to the extreme, but the waiter was not aware at all, and said without caring about others, turns out that you want to meet Lord Yi. Then you all came to the right place. If it's at other places, you really can't meet him. But Lord Yi likes our shop, and frequently comes to patronize our shop. What a coincidence, Lord Yi is here. The waiter shot a glance, and just happened to see a young man bringing 2 followers downstairs, coming up the inn slowly. Senior apprentice Sister Sun's gaze turned intent, a hint of joy plussing across in her eyes. It was truly wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search and finding it by chance without even looking for it. When the waiter saw that Yi Yuan came, he hurriedly went over to greet. Yi Yuan already went up the 2nd floor. Lord Yi is here. The box room is already prepared. Your Excellency, please enter. The waiter said with a broad grin. Yi Yuan casually fished out a piece of high-grade divine essence stones and threw it to the waiter, saying with a smile, thanks for the trouble. Take this. The waiter received it with a chuckle and said smilingly, thank you, Your Excellency, for the reward. At this time, the 2nd floor's guests all stood up and gave a bow towards Yi Yuan, shouting in unison, Your Excellency. Yi Yuan waved his hand and said with a laugh, all sit, all sit. This Ye's mouth was just feeling itchy and came to have some dishes. Everyone laughed and all sat down. Yi Yuan, being close to the civilians, was known to all in Heavenly Eagle. Hence, everyone did not mind, and were also not scared that they would affront Yi Yuan. Rather, when Yi Yuan glimpsed and saw Senior Apprentice Sister Sun 5 people, his brows could not help furrowing. These few people concealed their cultivation and seemed to have enmity towards me. No time for him to think too much either. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun 5 people already got up. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun used a tone of looking down from a height and said, coolly, you're Yi Yuan? Yi Yuan nodded his head and said, it's precisely this Yi. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun continued, then do you know Lure? When Yi Yuan heard that, his expression changed wildly. When senior apprentice sister Sun saw Yi Yuan's expression, she was immediately certain and said indifferently, "Looks like I'm right. Lien Xian, take him down." Chapter 2066. Cruce.H.I. Plussing the enemy with one punch. Chapter 2066. Cruce. H.I. Plussing the enemy with one punch. Yes, senior apprentice sister. Behind senior apprentice sister Sun, a girl in palace attire answered and stepped out, following her taking a step out. Her aura rose straight up, reaching peak fifth firmament true G. Oh, D very soon. That Lien Xian had a proud look, her gaze sweeping over everyone's faces, hoping to see wars. H.I. plus ping looks from the eyes of the people crowding around and watching. A middle stage true G. Oh, D mighty expert was AG. Oh, D in imperial cities. It was just too bad that she was disappointed. The diners were indeed somewhat surprised at first, because they did not think that these beautiful ladies actually wanted to deal with Yi Yuan. But very soon, the expressions of these diners calmed down. And in their gazes, it even carried a trace of pity. Even though these people's strength did not pass celestial deity realm at the highest, the big spectacles that Heavenly Eagle's martial artists had experienced before were too many. Forget about a measly little true G. Oh, D realm, even if it was an Empyrean powerhouse, didn't they also apologize to everyone obediently? Senior apprentice sister Xian said coolly, "Just break the 4 limbs will do. Don't harm his life. Otherwise, that SLUT will probably threaten to kill herself." The moment these words came out, Yi Yuan's face fell. Originally, when he suddenly heard Luer's news, he even thought that she was pretty good with these girls. Who knew that the other party wanted to break his 4 limbs the moment they made their move? A surge of evil fire immediately rose in Yi Yuan's heart. Senior apprentice sister, rest assured. Lien Xian knows how far to go and when to stop. This kind of trash, whichever place I want to break him, it will be broken there. Senior apprentice sister Sun nodded her head, clearly thinking so too. The current Yi Yuan looked to be just celestial deity realm cultivation too. He was utterly not worth mentioning in her eyes. It was not that Yi Yuan was deliberately concealing his cultivation, but that he traveled incognito and did not wish to swagger through the streets. But in the eye of senior apprentice sister Sun and her group, he became a target that could be kneaded as they pleased. Finished talking, Lien Xian's palm reached over, aiming for Yi Yuan's shoulder blade. A surge of ice laws instantly spread out, enveloping over toward Yi Yuan. The entire SPAC seemed like it was going to be frozen. This palm was very swift and fierce. If hit, the shoulder blade would definitely shatter. Humph! Acting recklessly and blindly, Yi Yuan gave a cold snort, bending his fingers into a claw, and actually reached first despite launching later, directly disregarding Lien Xian's domain. Crack! It was only to hear a crisp sound. Lien Xian fell to the ground with a painful cry. Her shoulder blade bones were already crushed. Senior apprentice sister Sun's pupils constricted, and she cried out in surprise, "Spatial law!" Yi Yuan ignored senior apprentice sister Sun's surprise and said in a solemn voice, "Where's Luer? Who are you people?" These few girls clearly did not have good intentions. Most likely, Luer's current situation was also not much better. Yi Yuan was naturally anxious in his heart. After a brief surprise, senior apprentice sister Sun recovered her calmness, her mouth curling as she said, "I underestimated you, but do you think that you can be unbridled because you know a bit of spatial law? Don't you worry. After breaking your 4 limbs, this young lady will slowly tell you that SLUT's news on the way. Huan Yi, teach him how to behave properly." Yes, senior apprentice sister. The pretty girl smiled sweetly and turned to Yi Yuan and said, "No wonder that S.L.U.T. always kept you in her thoughts. I didn't expect that your talent is actually not weaker than hers, cultivating to become a fifth firmament true G. Oh, D in a short 1,000 years. However, it's useless. You dared to hurt my Ice Cloud Tower's disciples. It won't be as simple as breaking 4 limbs." While talking, Huan Yi's aura gradually grew stronger. Taking 3 steps out, her aura already rose to 6th firmament true G. OD. But when that waiter saw the situation, he shook his head slightly and said with a sigh, "Really a little girl who hasn't seen much of the world before. Asking for trouble." When others all nodded slightly when they heard it, deeply feeling that way too. If Yi Yuan was just an ordinary martial artist, they would definitely be worried for his safety. But the one standing here was Yi Yuan. Even Lu Zi, that kind of genius who comprehended 5 kinds of laws, died in Yi Yuan's hands. These few little girls in front of them thought that their strength was powerful, but actually, in Yi Yuan's eyes, they were simply ants. The waiter's voice was not concealed. Hearing the waiter's words, her pretty face could not help turning cold, suddenly pointing a finger out, and actually pointed at the waiter. "Ignorant ant, go and die." The waiter was merely divine, Lord Realm cultivation. Being hit by this finger, he would definitely be frozen into an ice sculpture. But the waiter did not have the intention of dodging, because he knew that Yi Yuan would not let him die. "Humph! You're the ignorant ant." Yi Yuan had long lost his patience. The other party kept on calling S.L.U.T. How could he not be furious? It was only to see his figure arriving in front of Huan Yi like a ghost. Huan Yi knew that Yi Yuan knew spatial law and was actually long prepared. But even so, she still jumped in fright from Yi Yuan's ghostly figure. Huan Yu's ice law suddenly released Russ. Plussing toward Yi Yuan frenziedly. But sadly, Yi Yuan did not give her the chance at all. SMAs. Plus a clear slap sounded out. Huan Yi was directly slapped, flying out. This time, Yi Yuan did not stop, figure moving once more, already arriving in front of Senior Apprentice Sister Sun. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun laughed coldly, the aura on her body suddenly releasing. She was shockingly 7th firmament true G. OD. Courting death. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's reaction was also extremely fast. With a cry, her long sword was already in her hand in a twinkle, but Yi Yuan did not dodge or avoid. A fist met with Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's sword. Seeing that Yi Yuan actually used his physical body to forcefully resist her true G. OD mystic treasure, Senior Apprentice Sister Sun was even more scornful in her heart. "I sleet sword, 1. It was only to see the tip of her sword point. Countless ice sleets extended out of the void, piercing straight for Yi Yuan. Those ice sleets were condensed by her with the power of law, the power immense. Each one was akin to a sharp sword, even if a 7th firmament true G. OD forcefully resisted it. They would also have to be poked into a mesh. Yi Yuan actually forcefully resisted with his fleshy body. In her eyes, he was simply courting death. But very soon, Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's expression changed wildly, because Yi Yuan rushed over. Crack, crack, crack. It was only to see golden light radiate brilliantly on Yi Yuan's body. When those ice sleets touched the golden light, they were directly split into 2, like ordinary ice cones. These ice sleets that were able to pierce a 7th firmament true G. D to death were actually unable to stop Yi Yuan in the slightest. How could she know that when Yi Yuan broke through domineeringly at Cloud Pill, great imperial capital the last time, his physical body already broke through to late-stage 6th transformation. Even when encountering a high-grade true G. Oh, mystic treasure. He did not fear in the slightest too, let alone ice sleets condensed from mere power of law. At this moment, Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's move was already ending and did not have time to change moves at all. Seeing Yi Yuan's punch slam over, she did not have time to think too much, power of law erupting suddenly on her body. All around her body was actually covered in layers of ice armor. Yi Yuan did not care and directly slammed a punch on it. Poor work! Senior Apprentice Sister Sun vomited a mouthful of fresh blood wildly, figure directly flying out of the inn, her life and death unknown. Tianping, bring her to the City Lord Manor. Yi Yuan said in a cold voice. Yes, Your Excellency. Ning Tianping had followed Yi Yuan for a long time and knew that Yi Yuan was currently already enraged to the extreme. At once, he did not dare to dawdle, his figure going out of the inn with a dash. The Ice Cloud Tower's few disciples looked at Yi Yuan like seeing a ghost, their gazes full of shock. Huani covered her face and cried out in surprise. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's ice law is already cultivated to late stage rank 6, but she was actually sent flying with one punch? She could not help it but to be shocked. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun was a small stage higher than Yi Yuan. Her ice law was also cultivated to late stage rank 6 already. Her strength could also rank in the top 5 among the Ice Cloud Tower's young generation. She actually could not even not block one of his punches. Was this fellow still human? Haha, I already said that you all haven't seen much of the world. How can His Excellency's strength be what you all, these little fellows, can judge? The waiter had a smug look, as if the one who won was him. One not sure if icicle would be better, because different term. Chapter 2067, Northernmost Step. Chapter 2067, Northernmost Step returning to the City Lord Manor. Yi Yuan was too impatient to wait to interrogate Senior Apprentice Sister Sun and the rest. Luer's departure was 1,000 years ago without news. Over these 1,000 years, Yi Yuan was constantly worried about her news. It was just that the Heavenspan world was so big, so where would Yi Yuan go and find? Now, he finally managed to hear Luer's news. Yi Yuan's emotion had been uneasy since then. Moreover, he even knew that this piece of news definitely would not be too good. Ning Tianping dragged Senior Apprentice Sister Sun and threw her in front of Yi Yuan. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun started coughing fiercely. Huan Yi and the rest looked at Yi Yuan with terrified faces, full of disbelief. This man in front of them was too powerful. One punch had beaten Senior Apprentice Sister Sun to heavy injuries. Speak. Where's Luer now? I hope that you all don't force me to search your souls. Yi Yuan looked at Senior Apprentice Sister Sun and said coldly, Cough, cough, your realm isn't even as high as mine. Want to use soul-searching art on this young lady? Cough, cough, bring it on. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun said with a cold smile. Yi Yuan's realm was not as high as hers, so his divine soul was naturally not as strong as hers. If he cast soul search, not only would it not succeed, it would harm his own divine soul instead. Yi Yuan's face fell, and he said, Since that's the case, you go and die then. Presumably, this woman never did anything good for Luer too. If killed, then killed. Yi Yuan did not have any psychological burden. An ocean-like soul force poured out of Yi Yuan's mind sea. The faces of the few girls changed wildly, only then knowing that Yi Yuan was not joking around. Breaking through the last time, Yi Yuan absorbed the sea of law. His divine soul already reached the limit of true Ji. Oh, D realm. Stop. I'll say. Senior Apprentice Sister Sun screamed. Too late. Yi Yuan did not give her the chance at all, directly attacking Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's mind sea. senior apprentice sister Sun's divine soul attacked in retaliation frenziedly. Yi Yuan just gave a cold snort. The soul-suppressing pearl's power suddenly poured out, instantly tearing down all of her resistance. Yi Yuan did not have the slightest sympathy, reading senior apprentice sister Sun's divine soul roughly. One scene after another flashed across in Yi Yuan's mind. The more he looked, the angrier he got. It turned out that the northern border had a region called Northernmost Steppe. That place was a land of bitter coldness, factions complicated and complex. Things were not well-defined like the southern border, belonging to some heavenly emperor Bottomanda. That place was a no-man's land. Heavenly emperors did not have any interest in this region at all. Hence, it was divided up by major and minor forces. But as a matter of fact, there were 9 great Empyrean-level factions that were the strongest here. This Ice Cloud Tower was one of the Empyrean-level forces. Roughly 1,000 years ago, Lure appeared at the northernmost steppe by some unknown means and was taken fancy on by the Ice Cloud Tower's master. She was then taken in as a disciple. Back then, Lure was merely Heaven Glimpse realm, but the Ice Cloud Tower's cultivation method was extremely suitable for Lure. By relying on the profound divine physique, her cultivation speed was extremely fast. Over 1,000 years, she already cultivated to true G-O-D realm. At present, she was already a 5th firmament true G-O-D powerhouse. Of course, this was also all thanks to Yi Yuan. Back then, he helped Lure's 9 divine link meridian to improve further with divine pills, evolving to become the profound divine physique. That was how there was the present Lure. But walking along this path, Lure suffered considerable hards. H.I.+P.S. This senior apprentice sister Sun was envious that not only was Lure pretty, but her cultivation talent was also even extremely high. In fact, back then, because Lure violated a rule, she hung Lure up to beating until Lure nearly died. If not for second senior sister helping out later, Yi Yuan probably would not be able to see Lure anymore. Of course, although this senior apprentice sister Sun was jealous, she only listened to others. The one who really wanted to deal with Lure was eldest senior sister, He Shang-yun. As for that Ice Cloud Tower's master, she had an attitude of letting things take their course. Although this Ice Cloud Towers was a female force, under the environment of the northernmost steppe, they were mostly self-centered and would not care about the life and death of the people below at all. In this Ice Cloud Tower, to really talk about treating Lure well, there was only second senior sister, Yang Fei-er. This time, the reason why Sun Qingling came to find Yi Yuan was because another of the northernmost steppe's Empyrean-level forces, young Lord, took fancy on Lure, intimidating the Ice Cloud Tower's tower master with threats and beguiling with benefits, making her marry Lure to him. The Ice Cloud Tower's master could not resist the temptation and finally still agreed. It was just that Lure threatened to die. That was how the Ice Cloud Tower's master did not succeed. Lure's thoughts were pure, and her feelings for Yi Yuan were known by eldest senior sister He Shang-yun long ago. Hence, she suggested to the Ice Cloud Tower's master to capture Yi Yuan to threaten Lure and force Lure to give in. The moment the Ice Cloud Tower's master heard this, she was overjoyed and immediately allowed it, because she knew that the place Yi Yuan was at was merely an imperial city, so sending Sun Qingling over was already more than sufficient. It was just that the Ice Cloud Tower's master never dreamed that with Yi Yuan's present strength, killing Sun Qingling was merely a matter of flicking a finger. Moreover, Heavenly Eagle Imperial City's strength at present was not the slightest bit weaker than Ice Cloud Tower. What was laughable was that Sun Qingling and company thought that they were powerful and came over to capture people without even making inquiries, resulting in being directly annihilated by Yi Yuan. You all very good. When he said this, Yi Yuan's teeth creaked from grinding. When the Ning Tianping and Bai Chun by the side saw this scene, they could not help secretly being speechless. They did not know what Yi Yuan saw in Sun Qingling's divine soul, but they rarely saw such a furious expression on Yi Yuan before. It could be seen that Yi Yuan was already enraged to the extreme. Why, Your Excellency, spare our lives? How could the few girls still have any proud appearance? They were already terrified to the extreme. This Yi isn't someone who kills indiscriminately. It's just that you all normally treated Luer like that, so you can't be spared. Finished talking, Yi Yuan waved a hand. Several streaks of sword energy fired out, directly blasting the 4 people to mere residue. These 4 people were all Sun Qingling's accomplices. In these 1,000 years, there were no few instances of bullying Luer and even quite a few times of harming Luer to death. How could Yi Yuan spare them? After killing 4 people, Yi Yuan sucked in a deep breath, forcefully calmed down, and said, "Invite Senior Bai Tong they all over." Hearing that Yi Yuan was going to the northern land, everyone was very worried. After all, arriving at that sort of place, no one knew Grandmaster Yi. If anything mishap happened, that would not be good. Bai Tong frowned and said, "Why not? I go together with you." Yi Yuan shook his head and said, "At present, Heavenly Eagle has just stabilized. Forces everywhere are casting covetous eyes, so there must be an Empyrean-level powerhouse holding down the fort. All of you stay. Just Tianping, following me will do. Bring Bai Tong over would naturally be much more secure. But the southern border was not calm and tranquil. Empyrean Pilljade, and the rest were all casting covetous eyes. Without an Empyrean-level powerhouse holding down the fort, Yi Yuan could not set his mind at rest. Through several years of seesawing and negotiations, the Myriad Treasure Tower and Heavenly Eagle joined the Southern Border Alliance once more. With this battle, the Myriad Treasure Tower was naturally the greatest beneficiary, but Heavenly Eagle Imperial City's limelight was the brightest. As the saying went, the winds howl around the highest peaks. It was impossible for Empyrean Pilljade, they all to willingly be suppressed just like this. Perhaps some troubles would occur. Bai Tong was not just an Empyrean powerhouse, but a 7-star alchemy D2. With him garrisoning Heavenly Eagle, Yi Yuan could naturally be much more REA's short. Yun Yi, when Master isn't around, this land of Southridge will be presided over by you. If you encounter anything that can't be resolved, consult Senior Bai. Understood? Yi Yuan instructed. Yuni nodded and said, "Yes, Master." After arranging everything for Heavenly Eagle, Yi Yuan brought along Ning Tianping. The 2 embarked on the journey to the northernmost step,